and welcome back to South American Contenders. We just had a 3-0 victory on the side of Isurus Gaming, but right now we might have the most evenly matched game of the entirety of South American Contenders so far. So right here I do have Frito and LaFawn here to analyze everything with me. How are you guys doing? Are you excited for another matchup?
Yeah, it's going to be definitely a brawl. These two teams are quite close. LFT and LFO. It'd be hard to differentiate them by name, but I think the play is going to be quite a brawl.
And LaFawn, do you think, even though their names are so similar, do these two teams have similar playing styles as well?
I mean, that's one of the really interesting things I think coming into this matchup. What are OWL and LFO going to play? I think we kind of expect to see the GOATs here from this team, the 3-3, and I think we're going to see the Zen play as that main support pillar, so to speak. But one of the more interesting things is we can expect, we have seen these teams run other stuff. It's not like they are locked into running, just that 3-3 composition. I'm curious to see, depending on where the map goes, what they're actually going to go. If they go to Numbani for that second map, that's probably going to be the one where flexibility may come into play quite a bit. There's a lot of high ground that first point, and a hit scan pressure is something that is very viable there. So while I do expect to see GOATs, I would not be surprised to see other things coming into play.
And yeah, Frito, go ahead.
Go ahead. Oh, yeah, I was going to say most definitely. I think we've also seen a lot for the region. I think it's becoming a bit of a theme that Pharo's been coming out as well. We know players like Lowlife was really popping off last week on the Hanzo. So I think both teams could choose to play counter GOAT strategies. It's that both of them are quite strong at the Zen GOATs, as we kind of were discussing last series as well, that I think whichever team sticks on it longer probably takes the series, because I think both of them will be able to outplay any counters that come at them, but we'll have to see how that pans out.
All right, and Frito, what do you think? What's your prediction overall? Who's going to take this home today?
It's really tough. A lot of these players match up quite well one-to-one. Ole kind of deemed one of the best supports, if not the best Zenyatta in the region, but Searchy had a great week last week as well. Fasty, brand new main tank for LFT. He was playing off tank last season, improved at that role, played well last week, but he's going up against Mate, who had a hot week last week as well. You can kind of go back and forth down the roster each way. And I think for me, the big difference maker today is going to be Leviathan, who plays the Brigitte. And we've seen, especially in the previous matchup, how big Brig can be. And I think he's just always in the right place, and his timing with stuns is impeccable. So I think Mate is going to have a much harder time taking over the game like he did last week, and it's going to go to LFT.
All right, well, we will see if that prediction holds. First, we will be headed over to Ilios, and there's no one better to take us there than Hirix and Lemon Kiwi. Take it away, guys.
Thank you so much, Katrina. Oh my God, it's week 2 of Contenders South America. I'm so excited. And we've got the two tied first place teams, LFTOWL and Looking for Org, who are both looking for something important here. And it's going to be a win in week 2 to put them in first.
Absolutely. And these are two really, really solid teams. Obviously, both very, very much deserving of the fact that, they are sitting in that really tight spot of being in 1-0. Already 4-0 map score. I mean, obviously, this is going to be a really, really tough matchup for both these teams.
And we just finished a fist fight, Hirix and I, of who is going to be winning this match. Hirix thinks LFTOWL, and I think LFO, and all of our analysts have been stuck on this Game 5. This is going to be the match that sends us into Game 5. And to start us off, we have GOATs from the side of LFTOWL and Looking for Org, bringing out Lowlife on the Widowmaker. This is what he was known for last season.
Yeah, and already both obviously bringing out Zen GOATs like you were mentioning, and it's really going to come down to who can get these first picks, put the pressure down early, and it's going to be LFT starting things off, so maybe my fist fight side is winning out a little bit here.
All right, just hold up, let me recover. Round 2, okay, so first fight, LFTOWL takes the point, and now not only is this important, of course, getting the capture, but now Mures is going to be keeping that energy that he's been working towards.
Yeah, and it's a little bit different there as well for LFO. They're trying to play into Ruins a little bit more by allowing Lowlife to come through on the Widowmaker. This is going to give them the opportunity to retake easily if they can get the picks. They got one already. Mures is down, so that's a big opening for them.
And Lowlife still looking for picks, but look at this, Looking for Org, have all these players down, and Mate has been leading the charge as this Winston player getting close to Primal. This is an easy retake for Looking for Org, despite not really using any ultimates.
So yeah, again, that retake is just made so much easier when you can land those headshots and really put the pressure down. Mures was postured pretty aggressively, pretty far forward, perhaps even to some extent overextended, but now they're going to go ahead and have LFT coming back at them with that same kind of force. And Miri is being low on that Graviton charge. That's really good news for LFO because they can play into their Widow and just kind of draw them back, force LFT to make mistakes here, and try to get those picks as it goes.
And they're stacked ultimates on looking for Orb. Primal, Trans, you're starting now the rally from Swar, and Lowlife's got the vision, but they know exactly where these guys are coming from. LFTOWL now have to posture themselves, get that healing back, especially if we are maintaining Fasty. It forces Ole to use that Transcendence. Now Muris trying to go after the exposed supports of looking for Org as LFTOWL, they continue to just rotate in and out, but it breaks the self-destruct. Double kill here, puts looking for Org in the number advantage as now they clean up the dispersed members of LFTOWL.
Great way to help sustain that fight too from Balti there. You know, just popping out the Transcendence, making sure that they sustain. They were kind of going back and forth a little bit, but with Balti pulling that out, it really allows them to solidify that fight. Now they have a big lead. And again, Muri's still falling very much behind towards his Graviton Surge charge. And this is allowing LFO to just pull LFT back, really kind of space everybody out and allow for picks to come through from the Widowmaker.
Oh, he should get that Graviton this fight, though. You see them charging in right through the middle and looking for Org. They're trying to find these picks with the Widowmaker, and now it's Leviathan trying to protect his tanks. Muris has the Graviton, and he throws it out. Not a ton has been caught out from that, but it does allow LFT to win out this fight, looking for Org, extending that lead. They'd love to get to 90% or more. Frix loses that mech. Searchy throws a body on the point, but it will be LFTOWL that get that flip at 90% for LFO.
They finally get it, but LFO, I think, got a lot more than they really deserved in that setting because LFT, they're not getting a lot of value out of their Graviton, but they're getting aggressive here already, looking to try to solidify something, keep up the tempo as high as possible.
So much mobility, and they leave that self-destruct right at the front door. It's buying time for LFTOWL. Looking for Org. They're out of ultimates, sort of out of options. They want to work towards something here, so all they have to do is win one fight, and LFO will take this first point.
They gotta maintain this aggression. If they let up for even just a moment, LFO can regain footing and allow Balti to once again put them in a position with that trance to actually just open up the field once again. So I like this a lot. They're just staying aggressive, keeping that tempo very high, and playing off of Muri's a little bit more here. Lowlife has been all but denied.
This is a spawn camp if I've ever seen one, and this is exactly how LFTOWL will have to play. When you have a Widowmaker on the other side, do not give Lowlife any space. You saw the danger he can do, and almost getting finished off, and now forces Balti with the Transcendence. This can maybe get LFO out of spawn as they jump forward. They dive towards the back. Here is getting close to that Graviton at 60% and growing. And LFTOWL, sorry, that was 80%, getting close with the pixels there, but nonetheless, he does throw it out, and it allows LFTOWL to get a few picks from that. LFO, they tried the charging with that aggression, but it's LFTOWL who extended themselves to 99%, looking for Org. They are missing in action, and LFTOWL will take the first point.
They found the gas pedal finally, it seems like. I mean, it seems like they were just in neutral, just kind of coasting slowly until finally they were able to get aggressive after finally being able to get that take. I mean, it was even off the back of what was a rather lackluster Graviton Surge from Muri's. But again, LFO was playing that to their advantage. They were playing kind of separated. They were playing that pseudo, I mean, they were playing what was in essence, kind of like just a dive, but with, you know, a Brig involved and having that Widow there as well. So it wasn't as much goats, and they were in a position where they could just play a little bit more separated. And it was very difficult for Muri's to find value with the Zarya. Once they did get their footing, that's when they were able to start doing things. We're going to see a little bit of that again here. Muri's in a much better position, though, to maintain that aggression against the comp that we see LFO pulling out right now.
So dive goes from LFTOWL and looking for Org. What's interesting is Lowlife on the Roadhog. He's brought this out before on Route 66 in a different variation of it, looking for the hooks. And this is going to cause so much trouble for Fasty, taken out first. Now a huge advantage for looking for Org as they want to rotate and get these scattered members from LFTOWL who look like they're resetting.
Yeah, I loved seeing Lowlife actually bringing out the Roadhog on Route 66 last week. And I even love it more now because this is a map that's so good for this.
Oh, the boot from Pizza Lover just took out Mate, and you have the Brig gone. Huge advantage now for LFTOWL, who have, wow, look at the dinks from Ole as well. And this was a World Cup player, and he's really shown his stuff on the Zenyatta today.
I mean, we had 3 people tossed into the well within the first 5 seconds of that fight even starting. And it was kind of a trickled-in fight too, which is really good for LFT because they only allowed 21% capture percentage for LFO through by being able to engage quickly again.
Look at this charge, and unfortunately, this kind of costed the Reinhardt from LFTOWL and not choosing to use that rally from Leviathan. It's actually the rally from Swarn that allows Looking for Orc to charge now and start getting that recapture. And LFTOWL, surprisingly, they don't want to contest this without their Reinhardt.
Interesting that, you know, this is the type of map that actually is rather difficult to get retakes on. However, both of these teams are very quick to just adapt and come back in, look very aggressive as if they've been controlling the momentum of the match throughout and easily turn these fights back in their favor. Now it's LFO's fight to win, in my opinion, because they've got Matei set up right now in a position where he can get a massive Earth Shatter, but
Transcendence just in time from Ole. It should keep everybody up as much as possible. Fast to even get Searchy. Number advantage for LFTOWL as it slams it down. Gets so many. Has to be careful not to fly off the map. But the train from LFTOWL looking to capture this point. They're starting to flip it over, but finishing off these last couple kills. Now the ult advantage is in LFTOWL's hands.
Miri is the one warmed up, it seems, and they weren't ready for that at all. We saw the hammer down while Miri's had both of his barriers ready to go. So he would put those up, block that shatter out very nicely. Very clean from Miri's. Now they're in a very good position here where they're outpacing Low Life ever so slightly. And that extra 10%, yes, he can get it very quickly, but LFT have time now to set up. And that's what's so important at this stage in the game. They have to maintain that aggression that we saw back on Ruins. And if they can do that, they can come back on this one as well.
Early fight advantage for LFTOWL with Mirrors' Graviton, but if he waits too long, Low Life will get hit. Now it's the tail of Mirrors trapping everybody in this self-destruct. And it looks like it only caught Mate there. Swarn's there to clean up the speed boost from Pizza Lover. And that's just going to clean up the rest of LFO. But they will be coming back with a ton of ultimates themselves.
But they're going to get aggressive here. Again, just like we saw in Ruins, Basti does have to pull back for a little bit here as we do see him come back up. But this is just time for Ule to actually catch up to Balti. So we can see them kind of going 1-to-1 on this. Low Life is going to be the one in charge, though, of trying to get the flip. If Low Life doesn't have the impact with the Graviton, if they're able to cancel it with the Transcendence, then LFT will take this map right here.
LFO with the pre-rally, but it doesn't stop them from this shatter. Have to be careful. Low Life's Graviton, you need to keep him alive. You've got the Transcendence out of Ole. The Graviton is thrown. Self-destruct and a happy birthday, but no one showed up to the party as LFO. They're looking to charge through. They need to flip this point. It's getting closer and closer for LFTOWL to take this map.
Swaran coming through. LFO should be able to get a flip in this situation here, but they're not going to have a lot of options going forward. If Miri's can stick in this fight just a little bit, and he does manage to do just that, he's going to have that high charge coming into the next fight. As long as he's aggressive, our analysts have talked about it before, where, you know, it's about being aggressive and putting your Zarya into more of a DPS role capacity at this stage of the game to get that last 10%, get your energy high, and get the setup so that your Reinhardt, Fasti, can cleave and actually shut down inside of that Graviton, and you could get the flip, you could take the map right here.
Swarn just started a pre-rally, so they're topped up a little bit more, but Mures needs that extra 5 or 6% for that Graviton. That's going to be the make or break. This is the last fight. LFTOWL wins this. They will go up 1-0. In our series, got to be careful with the boop. And if he catch Fasti, that's huge.
Wow, they get caught with that. Now they don't have the cleave to get the kills inside of Miri's Graviton, so that might be a one fight already for LFO with just that one boop.
And Low Life is about to get his Graviton. Mate swinging away, trying to get the shatter. It doesn't even look like that Graviton got much, but looking for Orgar just in the clear number advantage. Mate surviving this fight gave LFO a second chance to go into the third map. But Transcendence from Ole, buying some time from LFTOWL. The shatter is blocked. Mate with a very risky pin takes out his opposing Reinhardt, and it's the free shatter, but no one on the point means LFO will send us into a third point.
I am absolutely slayed, fam. Absolutely slayed.
Top tier analysis right there.
I just can't believe it. I mean, okay, so that one boop was so pivotal, right? And I mean, obviously, a lot of people are going to look at that as like the moment where LFO was able to take this. Yes, they put themselves into a position, but I have to say that was, if I was going to point one probably major point, is going to be that one right there. That boop was so massive to set up Fasty going down. Now they don't have the cleave to finish off any kills inside of the Graviton. And that then becomes a huge advantage for LFO. There was only one possible way that they were going to win that. I looked through all the scenarios, but that was the one. That was the one scenario. You know, Avengers-esque. They had one scenario. That was it.
We were waiting for this moment where Leviathan brings out the Pharaoh. This is what he was known for, already booping off Swarren, and here's with the Doomfist. So he will be able to put pressure onto the point. Leviathan might have more trouble, but it doesn't look like he is just booping and killing everything. Leviathan's a god.
I feel like this is one of those situations where we might have to start thinking about, you know, like I'm really bad at bowling, so I really have to kind of have those bumpers on the side. We really have to start thinking about, like in competitive Overwatch, some of these teams are going to start needing some bumpers. You know what I mean? Like everybody's flying off the side of everything, falling into wells, everything. You got to start thinking about maybe we need some bumpers.
Needing some bumpers, especially when you got Leviathan pooping everything off. Look how everyone's on the low ground. They're watching, looking for Org, and they've just spread them out thanks to that concussive blast. And now this could be closer and closer to a barrage, but it's a one-to-one trade with the Divas now. LFO onto the point. They need to try and protect themselves. This is why they're running this Moira Goats to survive longer than the 2-2-2 setup from LFTOWL.
This is something that we see a lot in SA as well, is running Doomfist and Pharah together without a Sombra. A lot of times you'll see a Sombra to deny some of these players from the GOATS composition, but that's not going to be the case. They're going to go for full on trying to take them down and just overpower them with damage, but it's still so hard when you have to go down like that on the Pharah. Leviathan just not able to get the job done.
Oh, it's Leviathan trying to make something happen on the point, and that was unlucky, but Fricks, great matrix of that barrage earlier, and Lowlife's gonna have that Graviton, and they've won this fight, and LFTOWL let them have it, and looking for will be rewarded with their patient. Oh, I don't know about that. Okay, I'll take that comment right back.
I mean, they're able to get the kill onto the Pharah, but I think they would have been in position to actually get that anyways, because I'm not sure what the shift cooldown is or was for Leviathan to jump back up into the air, but I believe that Lowlife had the opportunity actually to just completely burn him down with the amount of energy that he had at his disposal there. He could have just lasered him down. But either way, they get the kill. Now they're going to have, exactly, the swaps. Muri's coming through on the Zarya, but you have to wonder, perhaps is it too little too late? They only have 30 seconds. There's no way you're going to be able to grab in that time. You have to somehow win this next fight without really anything at your disposal and then maintain from there.
They're going to make some space here with the self-destruct, and it actually catches two. You've gotten rid of 2 out of 3 tanks. Responding self-destruct gets rid of Miras, but he was low energy, so LFTOWL still in the number advantage. They get now towards the point, looking for the flip. LFO just want to stall to at least 90%, but Fasty is just not letting anyone near his castle.
Somehow LFT are able to take a fight literally with almost no setup and just, straight up just using only a self-destruct from Agon, and that is not something that LFO should, allow to happen at any stage. Now they allow time for Maurice to come through, but luckily he didn't have much impact, so now he doesn't have much charge. They're gonna come through again, looking so aggressive to start things off.
They just burst it down Fasty with all this Brigida coordination, and they used the Sound Bear to give them that early fight advantage. So at the back of one ultimate, LFO have taken the fight, and now they're positioning themselves perfectly with Lowlife having a Graviton for this next one.
No way they're able to get past Lowlife's Graviton here. This should be LFO's to take, and that will be exactly that. So they don't even have to use it, but either way, a lot of back and forth there, but LFT, I think, set themselves up a little bit for failure early on by running that Doomfist Pharah. That's something that we haven't seen have a really profound effect quite yet. Certainly not to the effect that we've seen Doomfist Sombra or Pharah Sombra. Typically, Doomfist Sombra, I think, would be the go-to for trying to deal with something like Zen Goats, and SA just doesn't really pull that out that often. And
that's a first map win for LFO, and we were kind of fighting back and forth on who was going to win this. I thought this has to be an obvious game 5. These are two I think the best teams in the group right now. Looking for Org, looking for tanks, looking for team. They're looking for a win this week because this would posture themselves so well for the upcoming weeks, being in first place in the early rounds.
I think in a lot of ways, they're also looking for some ground to stand on as well after how many people just lost their footing completely. But we're moving into a second map here, and while that may not be the case until we go over to Route 66 and we see Lowlife coming back onto the Roadhog, something to instead take a look at is what kind of things are we going to expect to see moving forward. We already talked about how we were expecting to see a lot of Zen Goats. So far, that is exactly what we've seen. And we have seen some other looks, I would say primarily from LFO when they did run, what we see on the replay here already, where, they did run the Widow. They did set up the Widow and play this kind of dive-esque comp on Ruins, which you don't see all that often anymore. A lot of teams obviously preferring the tank-centric style, that 3-3 lineup, maybe even bringing in just one DPS to allow Brig to actually just kind of enable it. But that wasn't the case with them. They went for a completely different approach, and it worked out for them for pretty much the long haul, up until we saw that big tempo adjustment occur, where then they unfortunately lost the map for themselves. But I would say going forward, expect to see a lot more Zen Goats, but let's think about those opportunities where these two teams rather, can start bringing out those different approaches, where we see low life on a Hanzo, where we see, him coming out on a Widowmaker again at some point as well, where especially on maps like Hollywood, Route 66, I think Lowlife is a guy to look at, where he can really bring something different to the table, in regards to his pick and how different he can make these compositions look and feel by just changing, even just one player. And on the other side of things, I would be looking at Leviathan to be that kind of same role, where he's probably the player to look at in terms of how are these teams going to play and adjust to their competition. And so far, I think it really has been Lowlife that has kind of driven that so far, between the two, outside of perhaps, I guess, on Lighthouse, where Leviathan was on Farah. And that would be probably the only instance where I could say Leviathan was ahead in that regard.
And our analysts have been kind of fighting themselves behind the scenes about Moira and Ana and and Zen. It's your rock, paper, scissors of who's the best support to have. And that's the most diversity you're going to see out of Goats. And we actually saw LFO bring out the Moira version of Goats, while as the other side, LFTOWL had Ana version of Goats. And it actually was the Moira Goats that ended up winning because they could tank so much damage inside of the point, and this forced LFTOWL to get off the fair in the Doomfist and trying the Goats mirror matchup.
Yeah, and the unfortunate thing is that it's even tough to call, who actually wound up getting the better end of the deal in that regard, in terms of just the Goats play. At that point, because of how far ahead the Moira side was looking already. Remember, we saw Muri's getting that swap at about 65%. So there's not a lot of time for them to start building things up. Yes, they somehow won with a self-destruct, just basically going in bare bones at that point. But Muri's was only coming out at 20% charge after that, because they had gotten so much work done initially. Muri's didn't have time to build in that fight. It wasn't a long enough fight for him to build. So they really kind of fell behind in that regard. So it's tough to say, but I do believe that the Moira is what set them apart at the beginning, because of the fact that we saw the Doomfist Farah come out. They were able to sustain that pressure, as you say. So I would say definitely like the Moira pickup from them at that point, because they can just stay insulated onto the point at that stage, especially knowing that the DPS picks are coming out.
And that's how they were able to tank all that damage and sustain onto the point. And Numbani has been chosen to be our second map, which would be LFTOWL's choice. And not too surprising, because LFTOWL had played Numbani against Isurus, where we had actually seen what they were made of, while as LFO on their last hybrid, they played Hollywood against Black Dragon. So we don't actually know too much of what LFO will be playing on this map, but both these teams have been solid. They 4-0'd both their past opponents in week 1. So super excited to see where this series will end up.
Absolutely. Already we saw on Ilios, right? We already saw on Ilios how these teams can go neck and neck. Now moving on to a map like Numbani, this is an interesting map because there's so many different dynamics at play as you progress through. Like first point, you do like to see, like as LaFon was mentioning early on the desk, you do like to see, some hit scan presence perhaps on that first point, because there is that kind of map dichotomy, that the dynamic where you can play kind of further back, you can insulate that player, you can protect him from a dive, force a team to be kind of a little bit overly aggressive to start dealing with them, or else they have to find an answer of their own. And then if you run a dive yourself, you can actually easily get in their face. So it is to their advantage defensively. However, I don't know, once you get into that second stage of the map, then you start favoring tanks a little bit. And certainly towards the third stage, you're expecting to see pretty much only Goats, maybe a Pharaoh or two, depending on which team you're looking at, because some obviously like to pull that out instead. But this is such an interesting map for these two teams specifically, because we know that they have those two kind of gears to operate between. We know what we can expect in terms of Zen Goats. We know we're going to be seeing a lot of that throughout this series and certainly on this map at some stage or another. But there's also those other looks that we can expect to see as well. You know, are we going to see the Soldier setup defensively from either team? A lot of teams often pick, you know, a McCree and enable that McCree as often as possible. Here in South America, especially here on point 1 of Nimbani, it's typically a Soldier. So I would expect to see at some point something like that. Do you run a Genji Sombra on attack? Do you run straight Goats the entire time? Do you run a dive Goats? I mean, there's a lot of different looks that both of these teams actually are very efficient at. When they pick them, they look very, very solid. And I would expect to see a plethora of different choices look good for these two teams and a lot of swaps being made throughout the map.
Well, the last time we saw LFTOWL on attack Numbani, they had run Nuriz on the Soldier. You touched upon this. Sometimes people thought, okay, Soldier on defense makes a lot of sense, but also on attack is what LFTOWL have brought Nuriz out before, and they'll usually have the other DPS player on Brig for that to protect that Soldier. If he were to get dove, then you have that Brig to kind of buy some time for your Soldier to get in a different position. So Soldier has been known to be LFTOWL's choice on attack, while as on defense, they have run this dive Goats of the triple tank with Winston and the Zen Brig Lucio on the defense. So we'll have to see what they're going to be choosing. We are in a bit of a pause. I think we're restarting the lobby, but we'll get into map 2 shortly.
I think, you know, on attack, we sometimes see, you know, a hit scan startup where you see something like a Soldier 76 coming out or something on attack. And we've seen a couple of times where that has been the case for some South American teams starting up here on point 1. I don't like that as much because it's so easily answered by a defensive Doomfist and a defensive Pharah. And we have seen that a few times. And then it can also be stalled out by just running the same exact thing, running a hit scan. And that is also what some South American teams have been doing as of late. Actually, I would say a majority of South American teams as of late as well, where they're just playing to insulate and protect a Soldier and make sure that they can put the pressure on into any of those congested points that they can. And then the Soldier is the one just putting out the pressure from the multitude of angles that he can take at any given time, and then using the Helix to also go to the other side high ground as well. So you can easily utilize that Soldier if you want to take multiple angles and really put the pressure on the back of a Goats team should they run that, or even onto a dive style composition as well. So I like the Soldier defensively. I'm not sure about hit scan as an offensive option. So LFO not pulling that out this time. It looks like they're instead using the Doomfist Sombra. I like this. LFT, they are going to use the offensive Soldier. We'll have to see if they can find an answer here with this Doomfist, or if Mirrors is going to be able to catch them off guard.
Well, the goal is to set up here on this high ground. Mate knows exactly where they are. Drops the bubble, gets spooked off, is able to jump back on. Has to be careful, though. It looks like LFTOWL have pushed them back for now, but not if Lowlife something to say about it. Almost did not get away from that engagement. So 1-to-1 trade, and this is probably not the attack that LFTOWL were looking for, especially when they're all pretty low.
This is exactly what I was trying to say, too, is just, you know, by denying that Soldier, they now lack the firepower to really kind of get in there, and Lowlife can basically do whatever he wants, taking out Ule there as well. But we'll have to see if any adjustments are going to be made. Last week we saw, you know, some changes in terms of the way that they approached. This time, it's going to be Muriez just straight swapping onto McCree. We know in the past that this is an option for you if you want to delete the Doomfist Sombra. They're just going to go for a counter comp approach instead. They have to be careful, though. This isn't going to work if they get into that condensed corridor and go through the hallway again. They can easily be taken out, but they find the answer anyway.
He just got deleted. They know exactly where he was coming from, and that double stun of the McCree and the Brig, the exact answer, as you were saying, to Lowlife. Now with that pick advantage, LFTOWL, they want to aggress towards this point, but is the EMP that Swarm that might put a wrench in their gears, and they're pushing back. They do not want to engage in the middle of this EMP, but Transcendence just used there from Searchy to keep his defense topped up, but LFTOWL, now it's their turn to transcend. They push towards the point, but it's been a very, very slow attack for LFTOWL.
Oh, Mirror's in position, but the rest of his team is falling around him, and he's forced to fall back now. LFO holding out strong. 2 minutes already off the clock here, Lemon, and we're going to be seeing LFT now in a precarious situation alongside two of his teammates, where LFO probably could have actually just gone forward and taken those kills as they were pretty low there, and then just rotated back to point and awarded themselves another 20 seconds. But now instead, LFT are going to be coming through. They have Fasty's ultimate, and that might be enough to knock them about and set up Outgoing here.
They just stunned Mate and just deleted him as well. And you got the sleeps coming in from Balti. This sort of stalls out LFTOWL. And they took care of Fasty, who had Primal. Probably didn't have the opportunity to use that. And Mures is there. Thinks it's a winnable fight. They push towards the point. LFO are just gone. Low Life wants to engage once more. Burn time off of this clock. But this is a lost fight. LFTOWL will get the payload.
Oh, they're going to put some pressure down on Mate as well. And he's going to get some healing because Balti's literally right there behind them as they go for the re-engage, but they just aren't in a good enough position to pull this off. Muri's making sure that they, have to pull back. That Deadeye is just right in their face. Come on forward. I dare you. Not going to be the case, though, but LFT cleaning things up here.
Yeah, love the Zen Ana choice from LFO, and Balti has been hitting these sleeps and these antis that have been slowing down these pushes from LFTOWL, and from the aggression we saw in map 1, I think this is a way to slow everything down.
Still playing that kind of enable the McCree setup. Muri's is going to be flanking a little bit more than you would expect, I think, in this particular section of the map. They want to try to see if they can find value by flanking that McCree behind, putting some shots down into the backline, and maybe shutting down Balti if they can. I mean, that would be the primary goal, is putting some hurt down onto that Ana in the backline.
Mate wants to put some hurt down onto this Reinhardt, who's swapped over, wants to block some of these shots from Mures, had a little bit more protection, knows these dives are maybe not as safe as he would like, and they're already getting pressured from a Primal Rage from Fasty into the back, which bops Mate in the line of fire, forcing him to get a lot of pressure. He actually hasn't gone down yet thanks to the support of his teammates, and now Fasty's getting pressured and getting too close to the hammer of Mate. Meanwhile, LFTOWL haven't been able to push the payload, but the cleanup is there, and they will get point B.
Really fast, too. I mean, now they award themselves with a pretty solid time bank coming away from, barely being able to get that first point. Now looking very solid. Now switching over to that Zen Goat style. Remember what we talked about, going into this third stage, you're expecting to see goats. Here we do get to see Zen versus Moira. The difference that this is going to cause. Defensively, they can pull back into their Moira. Offensively, they're looking to really find an opening and shutting down Mate early on.
This is maybe the right choice. You have Moira that puts out more healing. The Shatter gets stunned out. Self-destruct, though, could still be a big ouchie. But LFTOWL, they disengage at the right moment. LFTOWL, now they don't want to lose any more members. Their supports are out, and Low Life has gotten a Graviton thanks to all these stagger kills, and just charging right into the spawn and not able to finish off that Reinhardt.
Low Life and the rest of LFO going to pull back, and they're going to try to see if they can get LFT to pull away from their spawn just a little bit more, and then take more time away from them by dropping the grab onto a corner as soon as they possibly can. It looks like Low Life is going to actually just drop in on top of them so that they don't see it even coming, and he's just going to sneak that one through, and there it is.
Oh, it's big, and no support ultimates yet. Actually, Soundbear drop from Pizza Lover. Does this give them enough survivability through the chaos of ultimates going on? Now there's a Graviton from Low Life. LFTOWL, they've gotten fast, they've gotten 2 kills, and they want to finish off Friggs, get him out of mech, and that will be the end fight for LFTOWL. Looking down the barrel now of point C, they won't have a Graviton, but they'll have everything else to work with.
That's actually really good from LFT, only using 2 ults to just completely turn around what was honestly a pretty well set up Graviton surge. Frex just didn't have the follow-up there, and Mate wasn't quite aggressive enough in his positioning. Now they have a good spot here if LFT can hold out.
Oh, a pre-rally from Leviathan, and Fasty's just getting speed boosted into the enemy team and looking for the Shatter, goes behind the payload, slams it down, but it is blocked from Mate. Saw exactly where it's coming. Now an equal Shatter, and it's even bigger. LFO doing everything they can to hold this defense. It's back and forth. Freak self-destruct earlier, did get 1, but it's LFTOWL who are sustaining. They are just so aggressive at the end of this point. You got a Desperation Hammond from Mures coming back, but they don't need it because they got point C.
LFT close it out, and honestly, that first attack maybe wasn't looking the way that they wanted it to look, and they obviously don't have a big enough time bank to make those kind of same errors, but LFO really brought it to them. I mean, they looked really solid. Low Life is looking as good as he ever has, in my opinion, even through back into past seasons where we've seen him, and seeing the versatility that he brings to this team, like we talked about, it's not going to be just goats. Yes, that's probably what's to be expected a majority of the time here. Zen goats, maybe Moira goats for LFO, because they've pulled that out now a few more times, I would say, than their Zen counterparts. But look for Low Life, look for Leviathan, look for Muris as well to just really kind of show out and be the different makers and the big impactful members of each of these respective teams. Now, LFO, they're looking for an attack phase of their own here. I would expect to see something interesting from Low Life here. I mean, we could always see something like a Doomfist first attack that we've seen a couple of times, but I am actually more of a fan of what he has selected right now. Genji, I think it's a much better approach offensively. Defensively, yes, Doomfist is, I think, your go-to. But offensively, I actually really like the Sombra Genji setup. Just straight up EMP, nano-bladed up, bring in the Ana as well. I think that's a very, very solid approach to any attack with a setup like this, where you have that verticality, you have that approach where you can dive into the backline as well.
I feel like the fair is a bit of a risk because you have to stay out of line of sight of any potential threats. And actually, Leviathan bringing his own fair out, so it's going to be a fair duel. Now, the question is, what angle do they come up on? Do you go towards the left while your team attacks to the other side? Make sure your team takes that attention away. It looks like Leviathan looking for that initial poke damage.
And I don't think this is on this patch that they're playing on, but I mean, on live, you can deflect the Doomfist punch now. I don't think it's on this patch though, so I don't think it's on this particular patch just yet. So we'll have to see if this Genji can play into Muris, or if that is going to be something that we'll have to see later on.
So LFO got a few cooldowns out of LFTOWL, but they had to disengage to heal up, and it's been a poke war between these two teams. Maybe it's going to be a deciding Genji blade or a deciding ultimate that will allow the defense or the attack to thrive at this point. Low Life has been farming towards it, 75% and growing, and he's getting a lot of protection from these tanks. Look how close he's playing. He's not flanking, and he's not attacking any exposed members. You can see LFO are playing very safe and cautious right now.
Balti is the one that needs to be protected throughout this. With the blade coming out, there's the EMP to follow up.
And you want to go against the Doomfist, probably not the right choice. The Nano is used from Balti to help out with the blade, and Muir is now getting rid of the scraps and the leftovers of the point.
And that will definitely be LFT winning out. That defensive Doomfist came through clutch as Low Life was just not able to connect with the blade. And they're going to clean things up the way that LFO was unable to on their defense that first point. You can see the LFT just being so aggressive as they win fights. They just take everything they possibly can. But here's that difference maker, I think. Swaron going to the Sombra as they actually swap Low Life completely off as well. And he's going to go to Widow. But I think the Sombra is actually the definite pick here. You can get the hack off, you can shut down Agon, you can shut down Fasti, you can take Pizza Lover at the sky, you can shut down Ule's ability to actually be clutch on the Ana, you can shut down Muris. There's so many different options when you bring in the Sombra.
I'm not sure about the Widowmaker pick. Yes, you can get to the high ground versus a soldier. That takes a bit longer to run up there. But if he doesn't find the shots on the Leviathan, doesn't find a line of sight onto the supports, I'm worried Low Life will have low value at this coming fight. Leviathan gets dangerously low, has the barrage, just barely escapes that self-destruct that he didn't even know was there. And LFO, now with a few picks, will decide to engage.
Low Life has really popped off so far in the Widow, though. He's been landing shot after shot after shot, and that's another one. Leviathan going down. Low Life in a fantastic position to carry forward.
I was down him, but he ended up playing some Duck Hunt. It's mainly his takes making that space for him, and if LFTOWL would have denied that like they did in the previous map, this would have been a different story. But speaking of different story, we flipped over the chapter and look at this, only a tick for LFO. LFTOWL maintaining this defense down to the last minute of the game.
Thanks for the assist.
EMP coming up for Swaron, and they absolutely have to find value here with that. They have to get a kill onto these tanks, make sure that they can shut these guys down, and then start putting the pressure into the back line so that Low Life can have that value, can find the time and the space to do what he needs to do. That's a big hack.
I thought he dodged that. That would have been so swifty, but the disengage from LFTOWL might let them survive the EMP for now. Swaron Muris, they trade lives. 1 DPS down. Fasti, no main tank here for the defense. And he just lost Pizza Lover. Low Life in position. Gets the finish on the Leviathan. This guy's popping off, and this was the reason. You gotta watch someone like Low Life. He just flicks shots like nobody's business. I had seriously doubted the Widowmaker pick on attack, and he completely proved me wrong.
He was almost up on his second Infrasight after holding his first one for a little bit there. So now it looks like they're just going to say, you know what, let's bring over that Roadhog pick that we had from before. And this is something that they rely on quite a bit to really put the pressure on the shields, especially when they can pressure out with Balti on the Zen. That can force a lot of instantaneous damage from Suaron setting up onto Mate. Then he can go for the cleave. Balti can follow through. Looks like Low Life is going to swap. They're actually going to go to the Moira. So this is LFT and LFO going back to that classic, you know, what is actually better? Zen, Moira, 50-50, what is it?
Oh, Agon with the self-destruct into the back as the Brig. Stun there. It does find Low Life. Swarren down. LFTOWL now continuing to follow up in the spawn. They want to rack up as much ultimate charge as they can and still firing away. Now disengaging back into the payload. This could be a dangerous spot for looking for Org if they get stuck here, and they've wasted so much time just getting the point unlocked. This could be where it ends.
Basti is in a really good position actually to generate a lot more ult charge quickly as well, and he can put the hammer down quick if enabled, and look at Leviathan to see how he uses his cooldowns once the projected barrier does go down.
Looking forward, they have more survivability, and Basti just getting maintained here in the middle of that stun. You always have a kind of a little bit of a stroke as a Reinhardt when you get stunned, because you don't know if you're pretty much dead or you're still alive, and that's the power of teamwork. As LFTOWL, they surge forward, pushing LFO back in the closet.
Oh, Leviathan taken down by the Coalescence, so they don't have that follow-up, but Mirius drops it anyways.
Oh no, the Coalescence got shut down. Searching is down. Looking for Org, they just don't have the sustainability to keep this fight going. They're trying to get back in the spawn. LFTOWL helps them get there even faster.
Now they'll have Leviathan as well back pretty quickly to make sure that they have the setup for Fasti. Again, watch the cooldown usage from Low Life to see when he uses the projected barrier. Once that projected barrier comes out onto Fasti, Leviathan's going to be very, very aggressive, looking to set up Fasti for the Earth Shatter so they can clean up once more.
It's going to be Shatter versus Shatter. Which break can enable one or the other? Early shield bash, though. Have to be careful, because now don't have to worry about the other one as much. Shatter versus Shatter, one's blocked. Now where's the other one? Slams down, and it's even bigger. This is looking for Org, cleaning up this fight. Low Life is so high charge. Kamehame on. That's a verb, right? He's just going for it, feeling everything. And you don't even need to. Apparently did use the Graviton, so
he got eaten
not
too.
Needed. Oh, he got eaten too? I was like, where did they even go?
So. Big unfortunate there for LFO, who are in overtime right now and need absolutely anything that they can muster to make sure that they close this out. Although, I think what is good news for them is that I'm not sure that LFT want to actually take this next fight because they have everybody strung out right now. So Low Life now has time to redeem himself, about a minute and a half to be exact, as Muri is currently sitting on a Graviton of his own. That last setup, Leviathan was a little bit pulled back too much. He wasn't actually able to get the stun off, and fast he would try to go for this the Earth Shatter, but just wasn't in position to get it off.
Well, self-destruct has to get behind the shield thing, a little too far forward, but they survive. Now, Graviton throughout from Muriz. Sound Barrier, use them searching to keep everybody topped up. Looking for Org, they're not getting the fight they want. They've lost their Brig. They don't want to engage without that. Fasty going forward and has to be careful. Mate almost gets bursted down, wants to keep that Shatter. And they disengage just for a little bit. They don't have time to waste, down to the last minute, and looking for Org have to finish the map.
Look how quickly Low Life is able to get this back up. Oh, he goes for the Earth Shatter, but he misses it.
Oh, that's a big oof, but now Transcendence from Ole, Coalescence. This is where the ultimates are gonna come out. Fasty might be looking for a Shatter here, and I'm not sure Mate's ready for it.
No more Brig.
Waits for them around the corner. There's no break to let it happen. It just keeps trying to bait Fasty's shield, or Mate's shield down, but gets bursted in the middle of that. So now, no main tank for the for LFTOWL, and they have a ton of ultimates. But the last 20 seconds, they're gonna have to hurry back to this payload in a jiffy.
They can get there. I mean, this should surely end in overtime either way. But LFT have so many weapons at their disposal. LFO coming up with some of their own pretty shortly. But if LFT can get the setup down and start putting that pressure out early, they can win this one out here and stop them before this goes into any more rounds.
There is just so many ultimates. Self-destruct, Graviton, another self-destruct, barrier. And who does it find? It's LFTOWL. The aggression rotation, the cleanup. They're getting rid of everybody from LFO, and it looked like they weren't going to get it done. And they did. They hold this defense, and they send us into a 1-1 series.
Before we started this matchup, I think every single person on the broadcast team, you, me, everybody on the analyst desk, hosts, everybody that's involved, was looking at this matchup as one that could go the distance, straight to 5 games. This could tie things up across the board. And I think that's exactly what we're going to get. I mean, we're already seeing right now what 1-1 going into the half. It's been back and forth throughout the entire series. LFT and LFO both playing out of their minds right now.
Just both teams playing out of their minds. This is why they're all got that 4-0. They're looking great for the week 1. LFT looking for org. They're looking for a win in week 2. I've said it time and time again, and this is the game that could be going into game 5. It's 1-1 at the half as we send it over to Katrina and friends for the halftime desk.
Thank you so much, Lemon. Yes, there is so much to unpack already in this matchup. LFT, LFO, both of them have been performing outstandingly well, but have also shown a couple of weaknesses along the way. So let's start by looking at Ilios. Frito, I remember when we were watching this, you were noticing a common trend with the teams that played a bit more creatively, let's just say.
Well, the problem is when you start to try to mix in DPS heroes, we said it, in previous broadcasts as well, it's a harder play style and we've seen bits of brilliance, putting in like a Roadhog pick, or the Widowmaker looked good at times, for example, on Ilios. But realistically, it kind of is coming down, like I said at the start of the cast, to the team that sticks to the meta, mostly because when you have to swap your whole team comp and get an ult disadvantage, that coming back and around is really difficult, and you got to make huge plays with less resources, and the 3-3 comp just thrives on always having better resources than you. And I think that's kind of the story of what took Ilios. And pretty interesting play to break down on Numbani as well, wherever we want to go into on that.
Yes, the supports were the star for me on Numbani personally. Lafon, what do you think of the support matchup so far, with Olay even being on the Ana on Numbani with quite a bit of success?
I think one of the interesting things, I mean, Numbani First has a whole set of like translations and setups and comps that you can run that work. In fact, it's one of the few points where Goats itself is perhaps not nearly as favored as it would be in the rest of the game, just because of how high ground. And if there's something that Goats isn't really that great at, it's moving to the high ground. That being said, though, I think right now you have to give it to LFT for the support matchup. I think right now, we talked at the top of the show about how these teams are very evenly matched, and I mean the scoreline represents that, but right now I think the biggest difference between these two teams has to be in the support line. Olay has just been lighting it up on the Zenyatta, and then of course we could talk about the Ana, we could talk about the other supports, but for me specifically, the Zen provides so much value in that 3-3 composition, and it really showed. Olay was consistently faster at building Transcendence, consistently the Discord prioritization was a little bit better, I think, on Olay's part, and then the thing we don't really talk about a whole lot is how many shots the Zen can hit, and Olay has been doing a really good job of that so far. So I think, yeah, this match has been made and kind of broken too on that support line. So moving forward, it's 1-1. While I do think we're going to go the distance here, I would definitely look out for Olay specifically, but the supports in general to be sort of the catalyst for the victor.
So are you saying that Olay might be the difference for the win today?
I mean, yeah, so far it absolutely has been. And this has been something that we talked about Olay before, because Olay has been known as one of the better supports in the region. So it's not like it's surprising, but it's definitely gratifying to see a player step up consistently.
And Frito, we saw another hero, McCreed, who we don't often see too much in Contenders, but except on Numbani for South America. Why was Maurice so successful on this hero?
Well, I have to say, it might not even be down to his personal play, because something that you may notice when we see Numbani played, especially in the South American region, is that Doomfist gets played to just stuff up that high ground time and time again. But it was very clear that they had a plan in order to out-footsie the Doomfist engages, where we know he's going to be coming, right? There's a big punch waiting around the corner. What are you going to do? They did a good job of either dodging it, by speed boosting appropriately to be able to get out of the way, or have the stun ready, or just basically anti that engagement, because if the Doomfist isn't able to get a kill right at the point of contact there, then you have a McCree who's got a bit of space to work with, and we all know that that's his place to shine. So I think it was more the teamwork that saw such success for the McCree in this situation, because we've seen a lot of teams attempt to pull out McCree, and I don't think I've yet to see one with as much space as Miriz was playing with. So that was really clean from them there. And when they got to play on the defense, we saw how good they were at executing the spam and punch strategy into top right with the Pharah and Doomfist in order to clog things up there. Only really breaking when a few star performance plays came out from LFO. And with a time bank disadvantage like that, it's no surprise that they started to fall short later into the map.
And LaFon, you were excited when you saw that Pharah Genji in queue for Numbani against I believe it was a Pharah Doomfist. So in that matchup, could you kind of explain to me who you think should go ahead? I do remember that, of course, it was Ole's nano boost onto the Doomfist, which caused a little bit of chaos for the attack, but when you see that matchup, what are you thinking as an analyst?
I mean, one of the weird things about that matchup is it doesn't make a whole lot of sense. It's one
Yeah.
of those weird things where, so one of the few times where it's not a matchup v matchup sort of thing is you're playing the map instead, right? And we talked a little bit about this before, but Numbani A point is so high ground favored that you need some sort of verticality. And hey, all four of those DPS heroes that were picked had verticality. Pharah with the air control, Genji with the wall climb, and then Doomfist with his plethora of movement abilities. There's a lot there that allows you to just scale the high ground. What was really interesting about that, though, is that Genji theoretically had the advantage twice in that fight, and it was just a little awkward timing. There was a play from Ole, nano boosting Miriz when he was being besieged by a Genji who had Dragon Blade and nano boost, I believe, low life. It was such a really interesting little breakdown where the nano boost actually ended up saving the entire play by just preventing the dash resets. So it was just a little cool moment. But I think one of the things, the reason why those heroes were picked is, as I mentioned, high ground being so valuable in Numbani, you want that verticality. And it ended up working somewhat to dislodge each other, but it just, the way it worked out was that LFT played theirs a little bit cleaner in how they moved around the map.
And as we move forward, going closer and closer to playoffs, these two teams could be definitely final contenders. Right now, Frito, let's pretend you can look into the future. I mean, I'm not even going to doubt you. You can foresee what's going to happen. Who do you think has the edge as we do move forward?
I think, as we said at the start of the cast, LFT on paper, to me, outplayed mechanically over the course of the two maps. It's just on Ilios, there's a few huge plays by Searchy on the Lucio, knocking off a Reinhardt at key points, or swaps where the ultimate economy just all of a sudden swung in LFO's favor, where I think LFT moving forward into this next half is going to be very comfortable. I saw a lot of key moments from Leviathan, who I hyped up at the start. I think he's playing really well. The core of the team has bigger playmakers, which gives me confidence that they're going to end up winning this series, and then ultimately moving forward down into the season, they look to be a stronger team on the whole, especially in this meta. As we said at great length, Ole, maybe one of the best supports in the region. You got a meta that Star, Ana, and Zen plays are to be had, and Ole is grabbing those wins at any opportunity. So I think they're looking good going into the second half.
Definitely. And LaFon, which one player are you going to be looking for in the second half to shine?
Oh, one player. You know, let's just go Ole some more. Give the man some love, because support is, it's not an undersold role at all. It's so very valuable, and you can see why. I think Ole has been just a monster so far, so to continue seeing that kind of gameplay is going to be very exciting. So yeah, we're just going to keep going with what's already been proven, and Ole is my player to watch.
Definitely excited to see some more of Ole and company, but first, we're going to take a quick break and come right back with looking LFO and LFT.
Welcome back, everybody. Hope you didn't miss us too much. It's week 2 of Contenders South America. Lemon Kiwi Hurix bringing you that action as it's 1-1 between LFTOWL and Looking for Org as we head into our third map. And I mean, we're still fighting on our predictions, Hurix, and I don't know who's gonna win.
It's tough to say. It's tough to call. I mean, even still, we're sitting at 1-1 right now in the matchup, as you mentioned already. Things tied up, and it feels very much like it is that case where it is going to go the distance. We said it before the match even started that this was probably going to be the tightest series of the week. Certainly the match of the week, in my opinion, in terms of, how close this is looking like it's going to be. Both teams looking like they're going to be on top of their group at this current juncture. Obviously, things can change. I mean, think about last season. We had a team that was 0-3, and all of a sudden they, rampage their way straight into the playoffs and, go deep into the playoffs as well. So we could easily see things turn around quickly and very rapidly with, pickups and trades and maybe just even getting better very quickly. But at the moment, these are the teams to look at so far in this group, I would say. And they are really showing us a really, really good matchup. And it's awesome to be able to see this in week 2 where things are kind of in flux. We're seeing a lot of teams really kind of liking that Zen Goats. Obviously, LFO has adjusted. They really are seeming like they're preferring the Moira at the moment, but we've seen different approaches. We've seen Widows. We've seen Widows work very well as well. I mean, both times that Lowlife has actually approached the game with the Widow outlook, and we've seen his perspective. He's been popping off left and right.
Prove
So
me wrong, all right.
yeah. So I mean, when those things come out, that's where I really expect this game to start looking a little bit different, where it's not going to be as tight as we expected. So I'm looking for what kind of differences we can see, how impactful are those adjustments going to be as well that we may see as well. First point on Hadamura, which is the map that we're going to be going into, is very much catered towards going into the GOAT style. We're expecting to see a lot of that, but there are different looks that we can get out of a point B defense or even a point A defense in some regard as well, especially if you see that Moira style coming up. You can play an Ana defensively, and you can play a lot of more DPS characters to really pack the punch so that you can find value with that Ana nade as well.
And Hadamura is that map that is a speed run, and it's kind of hard to run anything other than goats on your attack or defense.
Yep.
It's all about getting towards the point and trying finishing. This is the type of map you're going to see maybe your 6 to 8 point captures, your 6-minute time banks, your 7-minute defenses, because it's kind of a steamroll to just get to A, and it's a little bit tougher to defend that first point, but point B is where it's going to get spicy. And we started to see some variations from both these teams, bringing out the Genji, bringing out the Sombra, bringing out the Pharah, bringing out the Doomfist. And this is why both these teams are at the top, because when Goats doesn't work out, they can flex to other things.
Yeah, I mean, that's, I think, the most important point about both of these teams is the fact that they have that flexibility. And when we talk about flexibility, we've talked all day about Zenyatta. We talked all day about Moira. Now it's time for us to start breaking out some Ana play. We've seen it already a little bit, and a little bit on Numbani as well, but the duel of the Anas versus other supports right now is certainly going to be amped up if it ever was going to in this matchup here and now, especially defensively. Look for that to really show out. I think the impact of the Ana is what is going to determine who actually takes this map, who can take more time off the clock defensively from their opposition by being able to take down what would be likely an aggressive GOAT style attack from both sides. So Ule, I'm looking at Searchy or Balti being the real big difference makers here on the Ana to shut down some of these really robust compositions that are going to come through on attack.
And look at this defense from LFTOWL. This is certainly very interesting. I'm excited to hear what the analysts are going to say. The Ana and Leaf defense, you can hide her very far back. She can still provide a lot of healing. The Mercy is what's interesting. This will probably keep to pocket mirrors, give them extra firepower to get those one-shots. And Leviathan, this was a hero that he's brought on this specific map before. And Fasty and Agon, we haven't seen a lot of Hammond, but this is probably to disrupt the GOATS comp coming out from Looking for Org.
I think in a lot of cases they would prefer Pizza Lover to be on Zen, but I don't know if he actually can. I don't know if he has that ability, the versatility to actually pull out a Zen himself. So Mercy is something that they're going to pull out instead as a secondary kind of like backup option. Otherwise, that's pretty much just a kind of pocket mirrors like you mentioned. So they're putting out the pressure. Now it's about sustaining and making sure that they can deny a first point tick starting off.
Meg. Yeah, freaks out of Meg. Took a lot of poke damage from not only Leviathan, but Mirrors at a different angle. And look at this, the boop up from the Hammond allows Mirrors to just snipe some foreheads while they're past that shield. So, looking for Org though, they've already gone one tick, they're on to the point, but you got a Leviathan Tar coming out of nowhere, takes out 2 supports of LFO. But have they won this fight already? The answer is no, because Mirrors and Fasty are there for the cleanup, and LFO will just have to be satisfied with the one tick.
This is the part where you really wish you had a Zen, though. Low Life, he's so quick at generating these Graviton surges so far throughout the entire set. He's been very, very dominant in on that character, but not having a Zenyatta means not having a Transcendence. Not having a Transcendence means that you could possibly lose it all right here, despite your best efforts to shut things down. That Mercy, if she doesn't have a lot of healing going out and they really support it, everything inside of that Graviton, they could lose everybody and everything to Low Life right here.
It could be tough because Mirrors and Leviathan, as those Widowmaker and Junkrat, you're supposed to play away from the team. So this will be mostly to try and destroy Fasty and Agon, and maybe Agon can even eat it. So looking for Org, they have to play this right, and they have to see the positioning of LFTOWL. And you can see they're on this high ground. So LFTOWL, they have to engage this point, not let it happen. Valkyrie starts, the Graviton is thrown from Low Life. They end up surviving some of it. The mines were dropped from Fasty. It cuts off that doorway. Looking for Org, they start to pressure in with that coalescence from Balti that gets picked off from Mures. This guy has been the low life for LFTOWL. These Widowmakers have been really astounding.
Oh, they need Leviathan's tire here. He can pull it out. He just got it online. They just have to sustain enough to pull it back up. That's a big res too.
Oh, and Fasty can just spin to win and try and buy some time for LFTOWL. Looking for Org, they're at their second take. Leviathan's tires coming on the corner. Shot down from Low Life. Looking to re-engage. Mate slams it down and it finds, I thought it found the Mercy. They're able to fly away nonetheless. And LFTOWL have started to hold this defense. Mures fighting too. He's after the supports and no one has paid any attention to Mures. And he has won this fight for the defense.
Wow, they just lost both their supports to headshots. Mures literally saved them, but now they have to make sure that they can sustain on the point long enough to get some reinforcements. And there's yet another Graviton, and it's just catching Fasty for the second time.
Oh, they were just not sure if they were going to win that fight, and you needed that Graviton to snowball into point B, but it doesn't even look like they can actually get point A, and this was such an investment of time, such an investment of ultimates, down to last 35 seconds, and they still have to regroup.
On top of that, they don't have the ultimates to back up another push. So LFT playing this Tracer right now too is going to be so disruptive into their backline, especially onto Balti, who needs to stay alive in this fight to sustain in it as well, so that they have a good second push onto B if they're even able to capture out. So really, really dangerous position here away from LFTOWL, where, you know, Mures could even shut them down outright yet again.
Oh, spin to win. This is knocking the Goats Cup all over, but pin, stun, dealt with. Leviathan now has to equally be as careful with the Tracer. When you have a Reinhardt, when you have a Brigida looking for Org, this is the kind of aggression they needed to use to get point A in the first place. But in overtime, this is such a disadvantage. Point A is usually a point you get within the first fight. Now they only have 4 minutes instead of maybe 6 or 7.
But this fight allows them to generate some of those ultimates that they would not have had otherwise. So now playing momentum, they have at least some kind of advantage they can play off of. LFT instead going for a stall out completely.
Graviton self-destruct into the back. It sort of limits reinforcements. Leviathan, he is stalling with that Mei. Fasty leaves the mines and just in the middle of the swooping of LFO, and this disrupts the positioning only a little bit as looking for Org. They drop the sound barrier. They need to sustain. The Transcendence was used. Mate looking for the shatter, and it was dropped just now to keep the reinforcements at bay. LFTOWL, they still have members remaining. It's Agon, it's the Hammond. They're just trying to burn time, and it's almost down to 3 minutes and 10. LFO looking at their first tick now, but LFTOWL, they don't have any ultimates really to re-engage with.
Oh, Low Life got away with 20 HP too, and LFO look like they're going to be able to sustain this one with 3 minutes on the clock. Leviathan going on to the point. He's so close to the Blizzard. They have to get the Blizzard off or they won't get this one.
Oh, you need to pocket Leviathan. 91, he dies with it. And you had the leftover Graviton from Low Life, and it traps them onto the point. Agon is demeched. You're trying to have LFTOWL trickle in, but from the 3 minutes and something, they've shaved that down to 2 minutes and 39. So a very solid defense from LFTOWL.
Very solid indeed. They were able to take away so much time that you know, it really looked like they were going to be able to hold out on that point A, but now it seems with 2:40 on the clock, LFO are in a good position to be able to at least get a third point under their belt if they're able to have a much better look in their second attack phase.
It was a, LFO got the job done. They got the 2 minutes and 40. That's great. I thought it was 2:39. I'm off by a second, but LFTL, they have the potential to just snowball this and have a humongous time bank, which would put them into the advantage. So the winning condition is to just finish with way more time, and that's the potential of running goats. And LFTL, though, floating over something else, but I want to talk about what LFO are running on this defense. The Sombra Doom, possibly the counter to the goats they're expecting.
Yeah, absolutely. I think going into this next attack, we're going to be seeing LFO obviously bringing out that Moira. The Doomfist that you mentioned, LFT bringing that out. Obviously, I don't think Fasty's going to be sticking with this one. LFT or LFO going for a straight defense of just playing that Moira. We're going to be seeing the first time, actually, Moira v. Moira, straight up goats versus goats, straight vanilla, no Zen, actually, for Ule. And this, I think, is the big difference maker for LFT in a lot of these situations. The fact that they have that Zen, they're not going to have it here.
So the goats as expected coming out from LFTOWL. Ole, though, it's like we were hyping him up as that Zen player, but they want the more sustained healing. They'll sacrifice the utility and the extra damage the Zen can provide, and looking for Org mirroring the same thing. LFTOWL, though, noticing they're matching on the Moira, and now they want to switch to the Zen to have that extra damage. They want to have that early fight win, and trying to place that Discord Orb on the Reinhardt or any of the tanks is going to be the goal here.
All right, now we're seeing them already starting things off aggressively. You can see Fasty and Matei trying to battle for that Earthshatter so that they can get their setups from the Brig. Now getting very, very up close and personal. Fasty trying to duel out, and it's really going to come down to who can get that setup, because with Moira's with the Moira that Balti has, they're going to keep playing around this corner for as often as possible to deny Ule that availability to just land those right clicks.
And Balti has a more survivability of also being able to fade out of these tough fights that get a little too close for comfort. And obviously both Azaria's working towards that high energy, and now that Lowlife has won that fight, he'll be at the energy advantage over Muris.
This is a pretty good position to be in for LFT, because anytime that they do have dueling Gravitons, LFT is going to actually win that duel out, and they can unlock the point because of it. LFO, on the other hand, they have to play off aggressively to allow spacing for Balti to have an effect with and that impact with the Coalescence. So Lowlife have to really gauge the tempo of this and control the momentum of every single fight, or they will lose out.
And the Shatter is struck from LFTL, but they get caught in a Graviton, so the follow-up is not there. Muris throws out his Graviton, but I think it was eaten.
It was?
Oh my goodness, and you got Mate throwing out Shatters just for good luck. Self-destruct at the back, they actually were ended up having enough awareness to block that one out as well. LFO have used a ton of ultimates because they won the fight, and this could be a very solid defense from them.
Oh, but Mate's caught out, and they actually trade Reinhardt's as the Coalescence comes in as well.
Oh, and he had that Moira Balti there a little bit late to the fight, and using that Coalescence to keep the rest of the front line topped up while Mate is missing in action. But they still ended up winning the fight despite losing that Reinhardt early. Now LFTOWL, they're working towards their own Graviton self-destruct. I'm excited for this next fight.
So there's the Ana coming out from Ole. I talked about how, the Ana is really going to be what is the difference maker in this matchup. We'll have to see if Ole is going to be able to pull that off here, but Lowlife is outpacing the heck out of Maurice so far with all these Gravitons that he's been able to pull out.
Just don't get them eaten, forehead. That's all you need in Lowlife, the long range. Flank Zarya. Now the follow-up, looking for Orc, collapsing on LFTOWL, who are actually surviving surprisingly through all of this. The self-destruct from Fricks, it does create a little bit of space between the two as the fight does restart. Advantage for Muris, throws out the Graviton. It does catch the rest of LFO as the Shadow tries to counter. Agon self-destruct gets the bigger bomb. Lowlife, Mate down. No tanks for LFTOWL to really worry about as they go and surge onto the point, and this is how they need to take it now. Point A has to be taken. 45 seconds left.
And as they go towards point B, really look for them to try to enable Muriz as much as they possibly can. Try to get him as much damage out so he can generate that graviton so that he can be their DPS in this next fight. If they can get some momentum, if they can get a first pick, just kind of straight pushing in, foot down on the gas pedal here, this is their best opportunity to get a better time than LFO.
You're probably gonna hate me, but I love nanoing Brigidas because they just never got it. It's a raid boss, and they could obviously do that with Olay and Soundbeer, Nano, Coalescence, and LFTOWL are just trying to break through this tiny choke point. No one has even died or gotten low yet. LFO, they rotate towards the point. They try and build a fortress on this possibly final defense. Bit of a stun, it catches Mate and Sergi off guard. Huge advantage now for this offense as they draw out the Graviton. Self-destruct for the defense. Clears some space, but it catches Fasti off guard.
Yeah, what a stun from Suaron actually to come through and enable that kill to even occur. Unfortunately for them, LFTOWL just has a sustain to actually keep this fight alive as long as Mate doesn't have Earthshatter, and it's going to be quite some time before he does.
And LFTOWL, they still have some ultimates left. Agon first is self-destruct, but he's back on the low ground, and he's going to rotate back up the Shatter to get the reinforcements out of the way, and Lowlife can't really say anything about it. Is LFO going to come out with any desperation picks? We're not seeing Doomfist, we're not seeing any Maze yet. LFTOWL at their second tick. Is there someone here to touch? Balti is just deleted. Sergi and Mate, they get bumped against the Reinhardt of Fasti, and just like that, LFTOWL will finish with a 3-minute time bank.
I'm not sure who they did actually hit with the initial going into point B, that initial nano boost, but I want to say it was Muriz because he was actually able to go from what was, I believe, about 30% to about 90% off of just pushing through that corridor. And I don't think you do that without a nano boost giving you that extra amp. And then maintaining a pretty high energy level. So I want to say it was onto Muriz, but if it was, I want to, give them a lot of respect for that, because as I was talking about, you have to play off your Zarya in that instance. You have to make sure that you enable them to be the DPS for your team in that setting, especially in these long stalls. The Zarya is going to be your most consistent damage threat in a lot of situations, because a lot of people are going to inherently, or rather innately, want to run away from Fasti on the Reinhardt. So he's not going to have that same damage output as you would expect as what, he could be as the main DPS into a Graviton. So that's when you see a little bit of a transition. Fasti is typically going to be the main threat. However, in these scenarios where you do see them stalling things out, Muriz is going to be the one to look for.
It's always fun to see Ana's decision making. Do you save the nano to save an important teammate, or do you have the nano to sort of cut damage and maybe help that hero get ultimate faster? And you had said that, giving it to Muriz, not only for that higher damage, probably being at that high charge from the previous fight, but to get that Graviton even faster. Now, no more Anas. We're seeing Olay on the Zenyatta, and are they really doing this? It's a Reaper Symmetra, so teleporting onto the point and then just high damage capabilities here.
Yeah, they're going to jump right onto the point and just try to see if they can brawl things out completely and get control early. See if they can maybe even just get a tick before an engagement even occurs.
Oh no, Fasti separated from the rest of the team. Did get that kill onto Mate, and he got enough peel to survive that. So now without a Reinhardt here on this on this attack, it'll be a little bit tricky to peel some of this damage, especially when Swarin's so vulnerable as that Symmetra with the low movement. Low life can't even make up for that damage when he doesn't have enough peel from tanks. So the thought was cool, but they didn't get a tick. So I wonder if this is going to be swapped up now.
Yeah, I would have to imagine. The issue is that by going for that style, they're just trying to catch the other team off guard, right? Because they're not bringing a Zarya, they're not bringing a Brig, and straight out of the gate, you're going to lose every fight unless you get early pressure off very quickly, and that's just not going to be the case. Now, Lowlife has to catch up to Muriz. He's been pretty good for that lately, but he really has to step things up now or they will lose this map. What a stun!
Humongous! It is so bad. It's earth-shattering shatter right there. The fattiest of shatties. I can throw all the compliments out, but the way he played farther back, tried to bait the shield going down from Mate, and then slammed it down. Mate has been so inferior to Fasti on this particular map, and this might give LFTOWL the win just because of that.
Yeah, they need any edge that they can possibly find. Certainly it's not going to come from Lowlife versus Muriz so far, but now they have the Graviton. We'll see if that can turn things back around as he throws it down, and this time it's not going to get eaten up.
Oh, thank God. Bless up. We did not get Graviton, and it's not going to be the one LFO are looking for and are engaging off. And LFTOWL are pretty happy with that fight. Now they got support, ultimates out the hoo-ha, and they'll be able to survive the next fight. 45 seconds, LFO, I don't know they can get this A.
And remember though, because when Muriz is able to catch up to Lowlife, if we do see a dueling Graviton, Ule has the advantage because he has the Transcendence. He can keep his team alive in that fight, as Pizza Lover can probably maintain, or just rather hold on to his ult as well.
Oh yeah, but where is the self-destruct coming from? And it forces LFTOWL back. A little bit of space for LFO to engage off of. Now, half of them going towards this point, half of them still in the middle of the map. Bit of a mix-up, but LFTOWL using those support ultimates, the Transcendence, the barrier, going now towards the point. Fasty looking for the shatter. There's nothing anybody could say about it except maybe that shield from Mate that blocked it, but the fight is not over yet. 5 and less seconds remaining. This is the last fight, and just barely have LFO won this one.
I'm shaking my head right now. I'm shaking my head at Pizza Lover and Ole. Shaking my head. They needed to hold on to those ultimates to sustain through a Graviton and just win out right then and there. Now they're allowing LFO to take this point and start pushing forward towards the second. And now it's all in the back of Muriz. You put your teammate in a position where now he has to find extreme value with a Graviton, or you will lose this next point as well.
That almost got eaten. Muriz just waiting for the Matrix to go down. Drops it, catches LFO. There's only a few, less than 10 seconds, but Balti's popping off with the Coalescence. He is melting everybody from LFTOWL who are left, and you got the last-minute self-destruct. Looking for Ordnance. They're about to finish this map, and I was kind of surprised they even got A.
I was absolutely surprised. LFT were in a perfect position. They were in a perfect position to be able to win that out. They had to make sure that they positioned, speaking of position, they have to make sure that they're in a position on the map to set themselves up for success. You have to make sure that if something comes out from LFO, which you know is not going to be from Lowlife, the Graviton just yet, certainly they could build to that. So you know you have to hold on to everything that you possibly can or win the fight quickly if you do have to throw things out early. The only thing that they had to look out for were Earth Shatter and probably / very likely Fricks coming in on the self-destruct. They threw out Fricks' self-destruct, and for some reason, that was just the moment where Ule and Pizza Lover needed, or felt like they needed to pull out their support ults to stay alive and make sure that their team sustained through that, where really that should have come from a rotation instead, and they should have been able to hold on to those two ultimates. They should have been able to make that fight last long enough for them to have the weapons to actually take down LFO. They knew that they could just use those ultimates to live through low life, and then they can just easily turn things back around with throwing down Muriz's Graviton and just cleaving through it with Fasty and making sure that they could enable him as much as possible. But again, utilizing those support ults too early cost them not just 1, but 2 points on the scoreboard right now.
See, the toughest part about GOATs is those quick decision making. Do I use this ult? Do I not? And those micro decisions can cost your team a fight, especially when you overinvest ultimates. LFTOWL now coming out with the GOATs on this time, and Ole is gonna maybe have a tough time trying to land an anti-nade on top of the shield of Mate and try and deny that healing that Balti can put out as the Moira.
All right, Fasty getting stunned, but nothing gonna happen of it so far, as they can actually just catch him in this corner, and that will be LFO winning the first fight here. And Lemon, I will say, LFO right now, when the fight really matters, LFO look at their strongest, because in situations like what we just saw, they were able to sustain out Moira versus Ana, where you would expect LFT to really have the edge, and looked very good by playing around that corner and being very aggressive to try to take out any opportunity for Ule to throw a grenade in there at all.
And a shatter from Mate after he just went ham on that last fight, and they have to be careful. They got slammed last time, and they're about to get slammed again. It's huge, and Fasty couldn't block it. He's dealt with, the tanks are dealt with, and on the back of just the shatter, LFO are looking so good on this defense.
The setup there as well. Swaron, Lowlife, Mate, they are out of their minds right now, playing as exceptionally as we've seen them play. LFT really in a bad spot, I would say. I mean, certainly Lowlife is going to be in a great position to just throw that classic kind of right on the door style Graviton Surge. They are going to be able to easily cleave that out. They have the nano boost as well. I don't see this being easy.
I was gonna say, only $5 if it's eaten, but it doesn't catch anybody, which is kind of the
That was
same
really good.
result. Very low value. Murray's about to get his Graviton. Fasty slams it down, and this will allow... Well, okay, I don't know where he's going, but Murray's having a Graviton might not even need it, and you might want to save it for the point B attack to be able to snowball this one. When you only have a minute, you're not going to have much left for the next fight.
And that means that this could potentially still not wind up being a draw. We could see one team coming out ahead, because if they can finish with some time on the clock, they get some extra pushes. They get some other opportunities to start going forward with this. Obviously, LFT is in no way going to be able to finish with over a minute, so it still very well could end in a draw, but the possibility is still there that this is not yet decided by any stretch of the imagination. And they still have to get all 3 ticks, and they just got yoinked off.
Yoinked right off the high ground, and that's a bad position. Even Fasty joins them there, and now you can see they want to go back, rotate around towards the left side, and again, have to be careful of these boops! Oh,
get the bumpers! Get the bumpers!
The bumpers! Searchy was the one who did this back on Ilios, and he's a Lucio who's been fighting these sneaky boops, and you gotta be careful.
I mean, Searchy, not only was he finding those on Ilios, but he found one that enabled them to win an entire map off of it, and perhaps he did just the same thing. So hats off to Searchy for making some really, really big pivotal plays in those moments where they need them to be made.
Okay, this Graviton from Muris, this is the last chance for LFTOWL. This is the last fight, and it needs to be found. You're in this little corridor where if Fricks has the Matrix up, that's going to be eaten. They're actually rotating towards the point, being very conservative with their ultimates. Now, it's Goats versus Goats. Graviton thrown from Muris, self-destruct at the back as Frigg is stunned there, and it does just annihilate the tanks from looking for Org. Now they're trying to disengage and try and have one last defense. It's in overtime, which is still a very successful defense for looking for, for LFTOWL.
I think that one just got eaten, actually. The ult that came out, and I think it was low life, so now we're seeing the battle between the Earthshatters, and it looks like LFT should be able to close this out. They're able to sustain through.
And it's in overtime. You don't really need to kind of jump on it more. That's not any winnable situation. Although you have a Coalescence and a self-destruct coming back. Yeah, they can't even make it in time. But Hurix, man, my heart. I've had caffeine. It's overtime versus overtime, and we've already talked about this is going to be going to game 5, and this going into overtime kind of feels like that.
Yeah, we got more rounds, more time on the clock now as we saw them complete the map, and LFT will be defending first here as LFO looking, I would believe they're going to be probably playing some version of that Moira Goats, or rather not just a version of it, but literally just the regular Moira Goats, if you want to call it that. I think a lot of people are actually trying to stray away from maybe saying Goats and just saying like Moira 3-3 or something of that nature.
Zoats? Dotes?
Well, that's the problem, is that it becomes so many, there's so many different like keywords that you have to know, like what is floats, what is Zoats, what is what's the difference between some version of Dive Goats versus another version. There's so many different names now that are coming out: Dotes, floats, Goats, Zoats. I mean, there's so many different things that
you're gonna learn today.
That I think it's probably best we just say this is going to be the Zen triple tank, triple sport, Zen 3-3. On the other side, LFT bringing out an Ana as the alternative. And this is going to be, I think, a good opportunity here for LFO to catch them off guard with Balti on a Zen, which hasn't really been the case all too often. I think LFT pulled the Ana out for the Moira.
And you can use that braid to maybe land a cool sleeve. Antis are a little bit hard to get, but the nanos could enable your Reinhardt or save a teammate. Mate just whiffing that and gets out of position. And LFO still looking for a space of entry. And Mate actually survives, gets back with the rest of the team. And you don't have time to build a ton of ultimates here. 30 seconds. This is the last fight. LFO is do or die.
Oh, they're going to charge through. Oh, they stun each other. I think Mate gets away because he does have that shield as well. So they are going to get the kill onto Fasty.
Here is the Graviton. It lands. this is so much faster than Low Life. That probably is a game-winning Graviton right there. As you can see, LFO, they try to go towards the point, try and start that overtime, but it seems the fight has been lost, and that was just a huge Graviton that I think spelled the end of it, but maybe Low Life with his high charge completely proves me wrong. I said that his Widowmaker choice wasn't great, and this is how he pays me back. He Gravitons and solo wins the fight. I see you. I see you.
They just had them completely surrounded at the Graviton too, so there was no way that they could have blocked that damage. I mean, obviously, we didn't see Fasty there as well, so it was really just everybody just soaking up all that pressure, and now LFO going forward, they have a lot of sustain. Do they have the firepower, though? That's going to be the big question. They have Balti and Searchy with the Transcendence. They have the backup of the Sound Barrier. I'm just questioning if they have the ability to find the kills.
Oh, the rally starts from Leviathan. He gets stunned out. So much. There's a Sound Barrier. Balti's holding onto the Transcendence. LFTOWL use their own barrier later on. Transcendence comes out from Balti. Shatter hits from Mate. Knocks out Miras. They want to get that Zarya out of the picture, but they also have to stay on top of the point. It is overtime, and the Shatter is big from Fasty, but he gets bursted down before he can land his pin. It is back and forth, but your screen is all white. You're looking to Org, looking to finish the end of Hanamura, as that Graviton, I think, just got eaten, but a better Graviton comes out from Low Life, but the fight is already done, and a miracle has been pulled off by Low Life, who allowed LFO to even get point A, and a huge reason why they got point B.
One of the points that I had before was that LFO, when it comes down to clutch time, they are the team to look at because they are the ones making those big impact, big clutch plays to show out. Searchy has done it twice now. Now it's Low Life's turn. They are sitting now in such a good position in this map to be able to take the lead in the series 2-1. LFT was looking like the team, I would have to say, as the better of the two, right? I mean,
the better time bank originally.
I mean, a better time bank originally. I mean, when you see them go up goats versus goats, or rather 3-3 versus 3-3 and variations thereof, Ule bringing out the Zen looked a little bit better, I would say, or at least a little bit more consistently better than the counterpart of the Moira. And then even then, when we saw the Moira coming through, we saw the ability for Ule to actually adapt and move over to the Ana, and that gives them a little bit different kind of threat as well. And I think that's the difference. However, again, when it comes down to those clutch plays, that can be the deciding factor. You and I were talking about this before we even got into the broadcast day today, and how literally just tiny little plays or even tiny little misplays could be the deciding factor of this particular matchup, and that's exactly what we're seeing. Despite the fact that LFTOWL is playing outstanding and we are seeing great things, it's just clutch plays across the board from LFO, but specifically Low Life and Searchy that have given them this opportunity to potentially win this one out.
The analysts ourselves, we've been fighting because it's just a toss-up on who's going to win. LFTOWL could have easily held that point A, and as on the back of Low Life, they even finished the map. So it's just like these super clutch plays that are deciding these wins. Now, around 40 seconds remaining. This is the only fight LFTOWL will have, and they have to get A and also finish the map. It's a 1-to-1 series. It's going to be a spicy one. LFTOWL try to surge forward. Mate being down is huge. Is so bad for the defense, and they just lost Swarn, who was unprotected. LFTOWL, they step slowly but surely step onto the point, and now just have to get rid of Fricks. Do looking for Org engage here, or do they give this up?
Oh, coming around the side, Ole actually got taken down on the back end, and somehow Balti's still alive, so he gets onto the flank, and he's able to put out a lot of damage and taking down Leviathan as well. That's a big pick.
This fight, it's never over until it's over, and you got a shatter like that that just throws everything for a loop. Somehow misses that pin and allows the Sound Barrier from Searchy to go off. Interesting investment of this ultimate. Despite this, you might need those ultimates for point B. Spin to win Miras on the Hammond, gets pinned. The Beyblade, it's not over yet. This is Beyblade 2.0, and it gets stopped from the shatter. Self-destruct. This has to be the end here. It just has to be.
They're looking to sustain out, and Murias is on the Hammond instead of the Zarya that he would much rather be on for this next point B take, if they can even tap this out.
Oh no. I didn't even see where it was. I got really scared there. Mate's popping off, holding the left click. LFT are still engaging, and it's in overtime. If they don't get this, LFO are about to go up 2-1 in the series. The cleanup is there. LFTOWL had the better timing, had the better comms, the better execution. And you are right, the micro decisions LF Org just pulled off to hold that defense is incredible. Low Life has to be everyone's MVP in their mind right now.
Yeah, it's got to be between him and Searchy. Somehow Searchy is able to also elude what was a very well lined up pin, and I can't even imagine how that actually missed, where he just got booped to the side. And that's such a game changer too, because then Searchy is able to actually pull off his ultimate, bring the sound barrier back into play, and give his team that extra little bit of sustain that they needed in that situation. Maybe it would have looked differently had Searchy gone down there. They wouldn't have had the heals, they wouldn't have had the sound barrier as well as just being up +1 in that fight. So super unlucky that Fasty isn't able to get that. And I still wonder how that wasn't even the case. But despite everything, Low Life and Searchy are, in my mind, you could certainly say Low Life is a little bit flashier of an MVP, but
Yeah.
Searchy definitely has to be a consideration as well.
Searchy with those boops that he had, and especially on Ilios, that's the whole reason they won. And he had those boops even on Hanamura Point B. And sometimes you don't get to talk about the Lucios, how they control the engagements, how they tell you when to engage, when to disengage. They get you out of trouble. And Lucios and everybody is such a core component of the GOATS comp. One piece being out of place is the whole meltdown of your fortress of the GOATS comp. And LFTOWL and LFO, man, they've been neck and neck. I've been cheering on, I think Fassi has been almost better than Mate, but then Mate started having better coordination with Swarin with the Brigida. But then it was really the Zarya duels between Low Life and Muras that have been so equally as close, where you had Low Life, who realistically LFO should have lost that fight, and Low Life being so high energy, having that graviton turned it around for LFO.
Despite it being, I agree. And to even further elaborate, I think despite it being so close in terms of, what these compositions look like on paper, realistically speaking, it's literally one different character, right? Zenyatta versus Moira. It's a completely different approach to how it's actually played, how the other 5 characters play, right? Certainly you could say that the Zenyatta side is typically going to be more aggressive because they want to get those setups, they want to get the Discord off, they want to put the pressure down so that Moira can't keep everybody healed. Whereas on the other side, LFO want to play things more defensively. They're giving time for everything to build. They can control the pacing of everything. If they need to pull back, they pull back. Defensively, it works out really nicely for them because they can play around this corner. They can just play right around that doorway and deny a lot of the sight lines that they might have to deny, whether it be versus an Ana or whether it be versus the more aggressive thing, which would be the Zenyatta. So what this allows is it allows Low Life to start building up these ultimates really quickly, because he's very safe. He's very healthy at all times because he does have that extra healing of the Moira as opposed to the Zenyatta, which isn't going to be able to heal as much. So by playing defensively, by playing slower, Low Life has been generating ults a lot faster than all of his counterparts when they play this type of composition. And that has really helped them and has had a profound effect in a lot of their engagements where, typically as Zarya wouldn't have a grav, but now all of a sudden Low Life does.
I think I said that Hanamura, we could go to 6 points, and then it's like overtime 6 points. And it just shows how close both these teams are. And I don't think it really came down to anything other than GOATs. We only seen really GOATs. We saw maybe a little bit of Tracer from, I think it was Leviathan, but it's been neck and neck coming down to those micro decisions we've been talking about. Dorado will be our next map coming up, and this is LFTOWL's choice. I'm excited.
I'm actually curious why they wanted to pick this, because Dorado's an interesting map, especially for the side of LFO. And the reason I say that is because of the hog that we've seen from Low Life, not just today, but also on Dorado, or sorry, not Dorado, but on Route 66. So that hog is an option for them, especially on point A, if they want to use it defensively. Obviously on Dorado, it's a little bit better. I think it's good for LFT to go for this route as opposed to the Route 66 pick, where you would know you're going to see that pickup coming out of Low Life. But by running on Dorado, they still have the opportunity to have Low Life on this pick if they want to. Yes, they don't have the same environmental options by throwing people off the map, but they still can cause a lot of havoc. They can still cause a lot of displacement and a lot of disruption by bringing this out, and as well bringing out the Zen, something that they haven't brought out all too often so far in this series as well. Is that going to be the case, or are we just going to see more of the Moira? Because that's another option for them as well. But LFT, I think, made the smart choice here, going for Dorado, as opposed to what would likely be an enabling of low life even further, which would be going for Route 66.
It could. I think it's a solid choice for LFTOWL and Leviathan. We could see the Pharah, but is that the right call? We saw Leviathan bring out the Pharah on Numbani, and he immediately switched off of it. The poke damage is great, but it's not a finisher against something like Goats. You need to finish these kills with a Pharah. While I was looking for Orc, I think this kind of favors LFO because of low life, because you can have that Widowmaker into the back. And I had already doubted a Widowmaker against Goats. Okay, well, if you have the shields, can you get the line of sight? Can you hit those shots, those pivotal shots that can actually turn the fight around, or else you're just kind of a body at the back? And Low Life proved me wrong on Numbani when he was able to pick off the supports of LFTOWL. So I'm really favoring Low Life on this Widowmaker if they do risk bringing this out on the defense.
Yeah, I say LFO actually has a decent shot here. I mean, certainly LFT, like I said before, they picked the right map. I would not want to go to Route 66 against LFO right now with how this series has been unfolding. But even on Dorado, LFO, I think, at the moment, have the hotter Widowmaker. They have the more warmed up sniper in low life who has played it on 2 maps already and has been on fire every single time he pulls it out. Yes, Muriz has that in his back pocket, and they could play that here and really try to enable it. But Widow for Widow, shot for shot, I would, at least for right now, put my money on low life.
Are you putting this money on the Torbjorn, though? Are you really?
I don't know. Man. It's pretty decent against a dive, though, and especially in congested areas, it can really offer a lot of area denial with the new ultimate that Suranon's going to be playing off of.
But, you know, you get the floors, lava can cut off that chokeway. If you can get that ultimate in time, yes, it's great poke damage, maybe a good finisher or something to get people weak so that Low Life can finish it off. And not running the Mercy, so to, you know, give Low Life even more firepower. They're going to have the Zen on it to cut off the anti-heal and try and just put as much poke damage as possible. You can see Low Life at the very back. He's going to be hard to reach. See Fasty turning his head around to prevent that headshot. Won't prevent that one. And now it's field day for Low Life.
I definitely like that Muriz is coming out on the McCree as opposed to the Widowmaker. I think you don't want to go for that duel, especially given that LFO have the ability to set things up and really kind of control. Oh, that was a nice pick. Maybe you don't need the Widow v Widow. Just let Olay win that one out for you on the Zenyatta. But again, definitely like the McCree. Just try to play to enable him at Fasty. You don't need to go so aggressively far forward. You can kind of push that space a little bit and allow the rest of your team to come through and win out that midline fight.
When you got a young Jonak like Olay, like, yeah, Widowmakers are sweet and all, but you don't want to tango with someone like Olay. And you got Floor's Lava a little bit to maybe zone off the payload, but LFTOWL weren't ready to engage quite yet. You can see they're already farther back at the choke. The turret is placed, looking for Orc playing farther back to protect Low Life and Swarn from these dives from LFTOWL.
Great isolation, actually, from Elaforga as well. Now they get the nano boost off Matei, about to go ham.
Oh, he's going towards now the grouped up LFTOWL, but they have Muriz, could stun him out, and you see Mate not being too aggressive, knows the danger of it, and you have the Deadeye Muriz on the field, and didn't really find much, it seems, but LFTOWL, they're just trying to build some space around this payload, and LFO are just denying all of that. Finally, Low Life gets a little bit of attention, but now this forces Fasty in a really bad position, and should get picked off.
Oh, it's hotly contested on the point right now. 2 meters away, but it's LFO charging back onto the point without their Zenyatta. Oh! A gun!
That coming. Yeah, they're a gun, all right. That was a big pop. Hey, Lamau. So LFTOWL, they get point A, and they're pretty set up. They got the dive tanks already ready to go, while as Mate, I'm wondering if he's staying on the Reinhardt, or if he's going to want to go on that Winston for that high ground mobility. That'll be important for point B.
Mary's making the swap himself. They're going for that straight Zen Goats, and going forward, they do need to really play this high ground, I think, a little bit if they want to play this Winston, and just kind of operating from up top, really kind of pushing into them, forcing some pressure onto the backline as well. Otherwise, LFO is going to win out this, you know, straight brawl every single time.
Yeah, keeping Mate on that Reinhardt to just stall out the payload, just have a better defense and doesn't care about the high ground. They just care about not letting that payload move, getting as much time off the clock as possible. And LFTOWL, they need to dive this backline, but they need to protect Fasty. They're gonna do this with the barrier. They go forward, they keep trying to get these supports, and Mate has done such a good job of protecting them.
Oh, the sustain from the Coalescence. That's something where LFT has to pull back, but as that comes down, oh, the stun follows up.
Oh no, and he's pinning everybody. Olay has to use the Transcendence, but Fricks, I mean, the self-destruct's gonna blow right through that. And LFTOWL, the offense is going so slow, but maybe the Graviton from Lowlife will finish this one off. Self-destruct forward from Agon. Can it be another big one? More to just make space, but LFTOWL, like I've said, it's been a very, very slow-going offense.
Now his mech is gone, right? Because he's gonna lose that one real easy, but luckily though, Fasty's gonna make a swap. I do like this a lot. Winston is not the play here against a Moira like this. We're gonna see already that high ground control being taken advantage of by LFO once again. Now they can control when and how they want to drop in on their opponent. Marius though, lying in wait with that Graviton, needs to be able to lock them into it on the ground so that they can actually get their cleave off and take this next fight.
Yeah, you just want to push the card and force the defense to come down, and that'll be the moment Eurus is looking for the Graviton. Sees the drop, everyone is there, puts it up against the wall and traps all of LFO. Now, can they sustain against it? Mate is gone, no main shield for the defense. Looking for Org, they posture back, looking to set up Lowlife with the Graviton, self-destruct, and doesn't catch anyone in the middle of that Graviton, but Coalescence try to keep Fricks up, but doesn't save the mech. The defense starts to fall apart. LFTOWL in a great position. Could be a bit of a stall from LFO now that Mate is back, looking for the shatter, but he's bursted down before it happens.
So they just outright denied the ability, what a great charge there actually, to take down Suaran as well, but they denied the ability for Lowlife to actually even run the Widowmaker, and that's the best possible outlook that you could have for LFT. If Lowlife is allowed to play the Widowmaker, then he will find those headshots and he will deny your team. Now they're just surging forward in that Zarya v Zarya matchup, something that they can handle a lot better than something like Lowlife's Widow.
Looks like looking for Org, they want to posture on this high ground again, and when it's going to be Graviton versus Graviton, LFO, they have the high ground, Anakin, and they're dropping down, and they'll be rotating now towards the payload, just making sure they don't have it. Shatter, sneaky Shatter, because I don't think catches much, but it does force out the bear from Searchy because they got a little spooked. Self-destruct into the back from Agon. You got a Graviton thrown out from Eurus, and the kill feed is all green for looking for Team OWL. And maybe we could see these guys in the Overwatch League, but we'll see if they can make points C first.
As we see them set up right now as well, Pizza Lover does have the sound barrier, which they're going to need to battle against Balti's Coalescence. They have to have the sustain here as they all get grabbed up as well.
You got the grab, the shatter, the Coalescence, plus defense chance for looking for Org. It's about a minute and 44. LFTOWL in still a decent position. Now they have Ole's Transcendence. That's going to be huge sustain for this coming fight. Fasty has getting closer to the shatter. This could be what they're looking for. Look at them get so much more aggressive. Self-destruct into the back, forces LFT forward. Now Fasty slams it down and it gets a few. Is it enough to finish off the fight? LFTOWL, they collapse on top of looking for Org, and just in a few more seconds, you will see LFTOWL finish up this match.
1:14 on the clock remaining as well. LFT have done it. They've gone straight through, and they're in a good position here. I mean, LFO on their attack, we'll have to see what kind of looks we're going to get from them because, you know, they could go for their classic goats, you know, even going for the Moira style that we see time and time again from them, even as we just saw it on their defense. Or in some positions of this map, we could see Lowlife actually bringing out that Widowmaker because they can kind of, as the attacking side, determine what exactly, like, you know, what kind of pacing they want to take, what kind of compositions are going to be played. They have the ability to kind of toss that out themselves. Obviously, LFTOWL, they can play into that and they can just rush them, be aggressive with that Zen comp. But like we saw on Ruins, you know, the way that we started this out seems like so long ago because of the, you know, how crazily matched these two teams are against each other, that this series has gone on for quite some time now. But, you know, it was still at the beginning of this series where we saw LFT be able to battle against Lowlife on his Widow by bringing out the Zen and just being super aggressive. That's all they had to do, is just be very aggressive, bring up the tempo up to 11 out of 10, just turn the heat up quite a few notches. And that is, I think, the answer here for LFTOWL. If they can maintain aggression, if they can maintain control of the tempo of this matchup as the Zen Goats composition, LFT should be able to, I think, barely squeak this one out. I think it's still going to be a tight matchup.
Every time we think LFTOWL are in some advantage, that we think they're popping off, LFO they're able to play under pressure like that, and that's why they're not risking low life on this Widow. Might be tougher to get a good line of sight, and they saw the pressure that maybe Fasty and Agon can bring out when low life is exposed. So just focusing on pushing the car here with this Goats comp, with the Moira, and I think the real battle is going to take place in the market side.
Like getting as many right clicks off as he possibly can. They absolutely have to make sure that they have the advantage of the dueling grabs, of making sure that they have the transcendence to sustain through it, or else Balti will rip through them with the coalescence that he can generate at a much faster rate if Ole is not just hitting right click after right click after right click, just charging up as quickly as possible. You can see him doing a good job of that, though. He has to maintain pace with the Moira, and that's very tough to do.
And you see low life, he's using bubbles to more get energy rather than save anybody. He knows that high charge is so important for early fights and to build up your graviton faster. Looking for Org, they build a little bit of space around this payload, and you see LFTOWL are starting to get pushed back. They need to re-engage, not give up that space. But you see they rotate around the pillar side, and you're starting to get closer and closer to ultimates. Fasty slams it down. Doesn't look like it found much, but you got a coalescence now from Balti. This is great for lane pressure, and LFTOWL, they don't have much to respond with. Transcendence, though, it comes out. Low life traps everybody with that graviton from against LFTOWL, who are now starting to re-engage. Now that they've survived all those ultimates, they will push, looking for Org back.
That was completely off of Ule being able to maintain and be able to stay on pace with Balti for that long. Now looking forward, it's still going to be very difficult. Balti's going to be able to generate those in rapid succession. He's going to be able to have another one very shortly. You can already see him at 80%. But that first one, that was the one that Ule needed to get. And he got the impact, so now it's just about sustaining one more.
Peekaboo coming from behind, and you're looking for the shatter here from Fasty that might catch them off guard. He's staying behind the payload to try to make him hit it, and it still gets everybody. Pins here Mate, and that's the most important kill you can get as a Reinhardt. Now with the speed boost, just trying to rack up another shatter if they can. LFO are rotating back, and thankfully have kept the life of low life and wants to keep that energy, and he'll be looking at a graviton for the next fight.
One ultimate used and time bought for your Zenyatta. Now you have that same situation as before, where you can take that duel of Graviton and Coalescence versus Graviton and Transcendence.
Graviton from low life. You got the self-destruct Balti for lane pressure with the coalescence. Same Graviton. It's Graviton versus Graviton. There's colors. I see rainbows. I think I'm dying. Okay, Agon got a self-destruct. I'm not stroking out. It's okay. LFTOWL have held this defense, and it's them that come out on top in the grab. Or whose grab is it anyway fight?
Now Mate, he's got an Earth Shatter, but they don't really have a lot of other options. And now we're seeing LFO realizing, hey, we can't win these duels out when we are keeping the same pace. We have to either outpace them or we have to switch. They decide to switch. Balti now onto the Zenyatta to duel out Ule, and that's a very tough duel to have. You really are going to be seeing a Reinhardt battle for sure here, and it's going to be Mate on the floor.
Huge Brig stun will allow that shatter to go through, and this is the type of coordination a Goats comp needs. Your Brig and Reinhardt need to just be in the same mindset, and you got to count this down. It has to be perfect, and that's exactly how you execute that.
And it may feel like this is just a staunch hold on, you know, an overtime push, but remember, this is their first push. We're 20 seconds away from this being a full hold on first point Dorado, and LFO being stifled on their attack going into an overtime where they are not going to feel confident.
Free rally starting up from both Brigittas, and Mate's going to be looking for a shatter. How is he going to coordinate this? Just dancing around the pillar, trying to catch them off guard, trying to bait out the shield from Fasty, or get a Brig stun, but they're playing so far back, it's too risky. Swar needs to win the 1v1 versus the Brigitta to let that happen. Mate's shield's getting low, and he's not going to want to shatter unless he sees the opportunity, and it's there, and it's humongous. but it's a follow-up there from the rest of the team. It's in overtime. LFO cannot afford any mistakes. The sound barriers, the graviton drop from Furious, and you got the self-destruct from behind. They survive. LFO, they're pushed back. They get shattered too, and they had the ultimate advantage. And now LFO are looking at dropping this map by getting full held by LFTOWL and Yurix. I think we called it. We're going to a game 5.
It seems like it was scripted at this point, right? We've been talking about it the entire way through this series. Now we're 2-2. It's tied up. It's game 5. We expected it. It's been prophesized for years and years and years, and here it is. We will be able to determine who is actually on top of this group right now. It could very well be determined by this game. Obviously, again, as we see things progress throughout the season, or rather throughout the group stage of this season, things could look a little bit more different. But I would say right now, these are the teams to look at in this group. And realistically speaking, this is going to very well decide who is at the top of it at the end. You know, LFO, LFT, who's it going to be? Both of these teams are phenomenal right now.
It's LFTOWL, man. I mean, to be fair, they kind of pulled out a Torbjorn Widowmaker defense, and it's maybe you can come up with a theory of why that was solid. Low Life was hitting foreheads, and Fasty just couldn't really push him back far enough. But this was just a risky defense, and eventually this will fall apart with the right dive on the Low Life, with the right dive onto the Torbjorn. This eventually broke down, and hence the reason they were able to push through point B and eventually finish the map. Maybe this would have been a different story if they ran a GOATS defense instead of the Widow Torb.
And you have to wonder, I mean, coming away from this matchup, whoever wins, whether it be LFO, whether it be LFT, these teams have in their future a matchup against Upgaming still each. Upgaming is easily as good, or even potentially, some people have been saying that they're even better than both of these squads as well. So to think about the level of Overwatch that we've been seeing already in this series and in this matchup, and then consider them having still to face another tough matchup against Upgaming that could easily go the distance as well, because they are Upgaming is just as strong, like I said, if not stronger, going from that kind of chaos of coordination storyline that we've seen them have from season 2 to season 3, where they are now a very dominant force in South America. And this is just one of 2 very tough games for both of these teams that are playing right now.
I think an important consideration in the last fight that LFO had, when they had the Graviton, they had the Earth Shatter. Swarn couldn't win the 1v1 matchup against the other Brigida, and this couldn't enable his Reinhardt to get that shatter off. You just think if they had a 6-man shatter there, LFO could have pushed to A, and then it could have been farther than that. But it's all this chaos going on, and these decisions that you have to make as your Brigida. Do you enable your Reinhardt, or do you try to win the 1v1 to then maybe give your team a later advantage in the fight? So it's like these small decisions that kind of turn GOATS around on its back. It's been back and forth, as you see on your map selection screen. We're going to Nepal for our game 5 decider.
And this is another type of map that I believe really could go the distance. So not only are we going to be going to a map number 5, and then we got there, but I actually believe that Nepal is the kind of map that can take us to a round 3 as well. I mean, there's so many differences in terms of, what to expect on something like Village as opposed to what to expect on something like Sanctum. Sanctum, you're going to see, a lot of different looks. You could still see some variation of a 3-3 or, GOATS, whatever you want to call it. Yeah, you could see Low Life pulling out a Hog. You could see something like Orisa coming out. You can see even in some cases, a lot of different looks with Soldier even. I mean, going back to a meta that predates, obviously, the one that we're currently in, but Soldier is something that has come out a little bit as of recently, or as of late rather, and specifically on Numbani, but Sanctum is another map where you could pull that potentially out once again. So I think looking at this right now, Nepal is the perfect map to just tie this up in a nice, pretty little bow.
I don't know. We were fighting, and we both said this was going to game 5. You think LFTOWL are going to win on Nepal. I
still think they
for
are.
Org, and I'm kind of like, after that loss, LFTOWL don't look great. But I'm liking Leviathan on the Pharah. If he were to get those sick boops he got back on Ilios, that could be a game decider. If Lowlife brings a Widow and just pops heads, or you can even have Muraz. Muraz was known for his silly heroes last season, his Reaper, his May, and might take us on a journey like this camera is right now.
Well, Shrine is a map that we expect more than likely to see some version of Goats. Looks like LFTOWL is going to be bringing out dive Goats, if you want to call it that, and then Looking for Org is going to be bringing out that straight vanilla. They're going to just want to brawl out as much as possible, but again, really have to make sure that they keep Fasty in check to make sure that he's not overextending or Matei will catch him off and certainly lay the hammer down on him.
Oh, see, Fasty tried to hop in, and he already got booped off. Having that dive is going to be tough when LFO are playing a Reinhardt on the point. Fasty might have to switch off of this, but looks like LFTOWL have gotten a good position, and he got Leviathan enabling the rest of his tanks. This is pushed Looking for Org back, especially when they lost Searchy. They lost that mobility. They lost that ability to disengage and engage as quickly. So that will be the first fight for LFTOWL.
Both of these main tank ultimates are just so pivotal to have, though, in these situations. Matei doesn't, I mean, there's not really a lot of things that can block out Matei having a very, very impactful Earth Shatter. There's not a lot of things that can deny Fasty when he does pull out that Primal Rage and start knocking people about. They can start creating isolation through that. LFTOWL will now a little bit faster pace. They might be able to get some value out of it here.
Speed boost, they start to engage and got that lane pressure from the Coalescence, healing and damage. But you got Fasty with the Primal Rage, it's just trying to toss everybody up, and can they get them out of position enough for the rest of his team to follow up? He doesn't want to go too deep with that. Mate slams it down, but the Graviton stops everybody from following up with that. The kill onto Mate is big for LFTOWL, and with that, LFTOWL have accumulated a ton of ultimates.
Not only that, but they're going to keep a lot of them too. I mean, Leviathan is going to be at 75%, so he's going to be able to generate that really, really quickly. He doesn't have anything to heal at the moment, but, you know, as this next fight opens up, he will be able to put some pressure down. But here's the big kicker. Lowlife is now onto the Roadhog, so he's going to be trying to catch Fasty off guard with this bubble down and try to get that hook and allow Ule, or rather allow Balti to set up a nice Discord onto Fasty and shut him down quickly before anybody can get there like Agon or Muriz to lend the support to keep their Winston alive.
See, last time we talked about Roadhog, I said one thick boy because he can just eat so much damage, just like he just hated self-destruct. This is why Roadhog is so pivotal. Now, they're going to start rotating towards the point out that they got to pick on the main tank of LFTOWL. Soundbearer and Transcendence, and it's a losable fight. What a hook! But the bubble saves him for now, pops out of that mech though, and Lowlife just finishing off everybody. This is one of my favorite players in South America. Look at him just do work with LFTOWL.
Gets them back into the fight, but what an uphill battle they have in front of them, especially now. Fasty, he's going to stay on this right now. He wants to be able to have his Primal Rage. They know that they have the ability to sustain through Lowlife's hooks if they get into the point very quickly and start knocking people about. They have an ultimate advantage. They have obviously a big score advantage, so they only have to win one fight and make sure that they deny LFO from being able to generate ults quickly here.
So Primal Rage, Muraz throws it out right away, gets everybody super weak, but the counter shatter from Mate doesn't matter. LFTOWL just collapsed onto everyone from Looking for Orb, but Lowlife is still alive. Couldn't save Fricks there. Actually, Lowlife's just gonna get helped off the map. It looks like going on a walk with Fasty, but what a Primal Rage, and now we're wondering, is Fasty gonna stick onto that? Well, we'll see in the upcoming map. LFTOWL 100-36.
Wow, 100-36 indeed. And we're going to go on to the next one, which will indeed be Village, it looks like. But this is one that I think LFT actually have the advantage on. I think Sanctum is the one that I'm looking for LFO. So this is going to be a really tough one for LFO to be able to turn back, especially at this stage where I think Sanctum is the one that they wanted.
Oh, Sanctum would have been nice. Sanctum would have been nice because you got Lowlife that can hook people off. You got Leviathan that could have brought out the Fair and boot people off. Searchy, you know, the environment king. But here on Village, and we're not seeing any, you know, any Maze or any Reapers. Sometimes some silly stuff can happen on Village. It's gonna be Muraz on that McCree, and Lowlife's back on that Roadhog.
I'm seeing Lowlife on that Roadhog. That's a big one to look out for sure.
Muraz getting a little far forward, or actually going back towards the spawn, and probably going up against a Roadhog would be tough. Muriz would have to be super protected, and wholesale, we got Leviathan on the Ferry, got Muriz on the Hanzo, Basti on the Hammond.
And they still have the Zenyatta, so they could really put the pressure onto Lowlife, who doesn't have as many targets to go for here, but they do wind up capturing out the point already, and that's something that will definitely benefit them long term because they can hold out for quite some time here before LFT can find kills.
See Leviathan trying to find an angle. He won't be able to engage much off of this, hoping Basti can knock them into an angle that can get some nice rockets on, but this was sort of their issue back on Iliosa when Leviathan had the Pharah. They had to swap off with that Pharah. He was very powerful to win that first fight, not enough to finish it.
And it's just going to be a matter of time, too, before they start generating these ults. They can start winning fights once, you know, someone like Muriz actually has his Dragon Strike. But when the pressure is on with Suran, I mean, they are not going to be able to keep that Hanzo alive. So scattering about and surrounding them, LFO is going to be able to sustain as long as those ults aren't available for LFT.
Yeah, Pharah and Hanzo, great to defend with, a little bit more difficult to engage with when you got Swaran on the point. Nice barrage to finish off Lowlife, but it was mostly Matrix and traded out in that sense. So LFO, they extend now as they're just got to stall at Agon with that the passive of Baby Diva. But what is LFTOWL gonna do? They have ultimates. Hopefully they can engage off of this.
They actually have to be in the same situation that they were in before, where LFT, you know, they can start surrounding LFO and then use Muriz's ult. They have to have the Dragon Strike forced onto the point where LFO can't rotate away from it. They have to just try to sustain using something like a Transcendence, and then you force the pressure onto the Transcendence. Because Balti isn't going to be able to put out that same pressure, you're going to be a little bit safer with that. So I think if they can, you know, surround them, that'll be the best bet, but they have already swapped off of it. They're just going straight Zen Goats, and they're just going to try to put that pressure down instantly onto a guy like Mate.
Yeah, LFTOWL, there's no energy, no grabs. A Transcendence maybe from Ole to keep them topped up. Mate looking for the shatter. Do they know it's coming? And it's humongous. Mate now pins the Brigitte, and that's also an important kill. Not a lot of sustain left from LFTOWL. It forces out the Transcendence from Ole. This is the last fight, and LFO about to send us to the third map, unless Basti can say something about it and just needs to finish off Mate, who was like 1 HP. Where is Basti going? Oh, he's gone.
He might have actually just lost that fight for his team by just running off of the point. Missed that just a bit, and LFO looked to close this one out.
You called it. Point 3, man. Kind of like the first map, though.
So I mean, we were right. Not only do they go game 5, but they go round 3 on game 5 as well. And we're going into Sanctum. And I did think initially that we were going to see LFT taking this one. I thought for sure that LFO was going to look good on Sanctum, but LFT was just going to be able to squeak out things like Shrine. They're going to be able to be the better GOATS team on Village as well. And I didn't think we were going to see any Mei, so I didn't think that was going to be anything that was going to come out and be crazy. But LFT, I think made... Yeah. But Sanctum is a map that honestly I would give to LFO, especially with low life's playstyle.
And I feel like every time someone risks not going GOATS, they've been punished. That was the whole reason LFTOWL were behind on that last fight, waiting till 80% to go to GOATS. Not how, okay, low life, I see you. And he's done this before. So LFTOWL, they're seeing a little bit PTSD, and they're going back to spawn, trying to gather their supports and bring them back. You gotta protect your supports against low life.
And now we're gonna see the point unlock as well. And it looks as though we're going to see LFTOWL coming back in and just going for a method of trying to get onto the back of these snipers. But this triple sniper play for LFO is something that's really going to look good for them. Yes, they don't need low life on the Roadhog, but having the snipers is going to be just as good.
It's the game of chicken where these snipers from Looking for Orc, they need to escape. LFTOWL, they know they have to get away, and Ole sniping is hard out. Takes out both snipers. Are you kidding me? Ole is a god, okay? Like, he just took out both snipers as a Zenyatta, and this will allow Looking for LFT to flip the point.
Still have their snipers positioned in the back line, but, you know, they are going to be ripped down. We still have Low Life trying to take pot shots, but he's going to get jumped on rather quickly as he falls back to the safety net of behind his Hanzo, the other sniper threat there. But with all these different threats they have to deal with, LFTOWL, it's going to be very tough for them to do very many retakes over the course of this. They have to make sure that they just put the pressure out and be super aggressive, or else it's going to be a real struggle for them. Retakes are hard, but maintaining control should be easy.
This happened exactly on Ruins, where Lowlife was popping out as a Widow, and LFTOWL, all they had to do was deny Lowlife space. You can see they're just playing more forward, and now it forces Lowlife to go to a Roadhog. Swarn still stays onto the Hanzo. He's maybe not as big of a threat to LFTOWL, but Lowlife's Roadhog certainly is. Now you got the environmental factor they have to be careful of.
And that's still against Fasti on the Winston. So this is a really, really good opportunity for Lowlife to be clutch for the third time now.
Graviton self-destruct is a bonanza of ultimates. The last map of this game 5. I have no idea who's gonna walk away with it. All I know is everyone is exhausted of their ultimates. Ole being patient with the Transcendence, the Shatter, it slams down, but Mate's bursted in the middle of that. Ole's forced to use a Transcendence because of that, and it keeps LFTOWL alive and well. They're getting closer to 70%. This could be last fight territory for LFO.
Now Lowlife just not in a very good position. If they don't get control, it's very difficult to find value with that hog pick. So he's just going to go straight over to the Zen, or Zarya rather, but they don't have a lot of time to do much with this, especially as Balti goes down. There's only 15 seconds left.
Oh, what a good engage. Now they got to quickly disengage. They got what they wanted. They got a pick. Now, LFO, they don't have any ultimates, but if they can get a pick of their own, they just need to get through this choke, and it's not happening. Mate is down. They have no main shield besides a Brigitte, and now that Swarn is even dealt with in overtime. You got a back cap, and who's that sneaky player? It's Searchy on that Lucio. Can he have enough time? It's actually a decent amount of stall, and this opens up an opportunity for looking for Orc to engage now. Transcendence from Balti used, but the kill feed is all green in game 5, round 3. It's LFTOWL that will come out in first place in the group.
I feel like LFO just needs to start like a band, and it should just be called like Capacity for Clutch. I feel like that would be like such a good name for a band, and they could just be, it just defines them so well. Unfortunately, at the end, they ran out of that capacity just a bit, and they're not able to see it all the way through. But nonetheless, LFO bringing us easily my favorite match of the season so far. Yes, it's a little early, but it's going to be tough to beat that one coming down the line as well.
Whew, well, you win. You win, Hurix. I owe you 5 Bliss Bucks for calling that game 5 LFTOWL win. And it could have gone either way, but what dominance out of both these teams. These teams are going to go to playoffs. These teams could even be in our grand finals. I don't know how it's going to be laid out, but I'm certainly, my heart is beating, and I'm sure our analysts are feeling the heat. I'm going to send it over to Katrina and friends for their post-game thoughts.
Thank you so much, Lemon. We are, let's just say we're thrilled right now. That was an incredible matchup between two such even teams. And LaFon, I mean, did you see Nepal there? That last second back cap, that LFT finally pulling it through. I mean, just take it away. I'm just boggled.
Speechless is what I'm too. Like, I mean, this has been perhaps one of my most hyped matches since we sort of saw the schedule, because we expected these games to be close, but I didn't expect it to be this close. We went back and forth on Hanamura. We saw some really interesting plays on Numbani, but I want to talk about Nepal for a bit, because I think it sort of coalesced my entire opinion of this matchup. We talked about that first point in terms of how dominant LFT was. They controlled the entire thing. LFO, looking for Org, wasn't even really able to engage at all. And then we saw the reverse of that on Village, where looking for Org just held it down. And then you go back to Sanctuary, or sorry, Sanctum, and you sort of see just looking for Team just shut it down. And it speaks to just how much these teams understand how their play style in a certain environment. And I think moving forward, and even looking through the remainder of this series, because I think this is possibly one of the matchups in this group that will stand the test in terms of what we're going to see going forward in terms of close games. Looking for teams, LFTOWL handled their pressure. That map 5 so well. And I think it really exemplified the entire series in just their setups, in their hero selections, and their willingness to play the game. Both these teams, it's down to the fifth map. This is what fifth map, third point. This is it. They go and they pick the heroes that they are willing to play, and they actually change it up. So these teams are not only good at what they run, but they're not afraid to change it up. And I think that's the mark of a really, really good team. And both these teams are willing to do it.
And Frito, I know, speaking of changing it up, Dorado was something else completely. We saw a Torbjorn Widow first point defense coming from LFO. I mean, what was some of your favorite compositional choices you've seen this matchup, and what were some highlights for you?
Well, yeah, the comps have been all over the place, realistically. Well, I was thinking back to Nepal almost, where the moment I think we all realized that LFT was going to end up taking Nepal on Sanctum there, where they're stuck on the Orisa double sniper with ults in their pocket,
Right.
and they need to retake the point. And I'm thinking to myself, are they even able to swap here? You put all this investment into these ultimates, and then finally we see something from a player that I want to highlight, who I think is the make or break point of this team right now. Fasty, the main tank Winston, goes aggressive into the enemy team's spawn when realistically LFO had to pop their ults right then and there to stand a chance in that round. That aggressive play forced LFO to decide to swap to a Reinhardt to retake, just dumping multiple ults out of the economy, and that kind of being the end of it. We saw these different swaps really come into big effect in a few different cases. You mentioned Dorado, the Widowmaker Torbjorn strategy I thought was adorable. I thought it was pretty cool to watch, but that map ended up being a full hold on the back largely of the player that we have championed time and time again, Ole, where he being able to stay alive in the back lines of Dorado defense, the attacking team running the Moira character that I know Lafon is at every opportunity trying to dissuade teams from picking for that reason exactly. You have Ole in the back being able to just orb everything you see. He was able to even outduel DPS. There's a few times even on Dorado where he sniped the Widowmaker on attack right there on Sanctum. He's popping both sniper characters. By the way, Zenyatta's not supposed to win that duel. Just saying. And setting him up to succeed, I think, was key for LFT to take it. So I think we wanted to definitely try to discuss Hanamura, which feels like a lifetime ago. And
Oh my.
that map being quite a struggle, I think, can help us contrast where the player I wanted to mention, Fasty, is succeeding and also maybe struggling a bit, because LFT had multiple opportunities to really stomp out that map, but it seems like there's a bit of reluctance for the shot calling to just go a certain direction. There was many times on the attack where Fasty and crew were stuck at Hanamura A choke. I'm like, this looks like a ranked game or something, where they're not aggressively taking space and getting angles for their team to operate. But on maps that play a little bit more obvious, either on Dorado, where he's more so just holding the line and not necessarily creating the engagement, then you can fall back on Ole being able to hit every orb of destruction in front of him. And then when you go on to Nepal, there a lot more Winston, a bit mixing up the aggression and being able to play what might be the best 3-3 comp right now. Winston with the Zenyatta, it seems incredibly flexible, and if your team can run that, I think you're going to see a lot of success here in season 3.
I think I want to build on that. I want to build on that just a little bit, because we talk about the contrast between the support line, and then I want to talk and the contrast between the tank line and how that affects sort of the matchup. To your point, what is really cool about that is that Ole was, I think, one of the standout players towards the end of that series, because we talked about it. He lapped his counterpart in Transcendence Charge. I think getting 2 in the time that Looking for Or got 1. He was consistently, I think, one of the things for Matei, the main tank for Looking for Org, he wasn't even looking at Fasty as the counter shatter or sort of the shield to block. It was often Ole who was having the Transcendence up in time every single time when his team was shattered. And it's like, okay, so my counter to the shatter is not a shield, but Transcendence. And consistently, one of the differences has been that Ole has propped up some of Fasty's a little bit, shall we say, adventurous selections in terms of how he chooses to engage. I think Fasty has the mechanics of a really good main tank, but one of the problems he's had so far, and it might just be not a lack of confidence in his Reinhardt, because I think his Hammond was actually really, really good. I have opinions on Hammond in general in terms of his viability, usually less on the lesser end, but I mean, he made it work, and he made it work really well in Hanamura, a map that did go quite far. But his main tank has been not willing to engage, in a map that requires your main tank to engage, Hanamura being the case. And they've Olay has allowed the LFT to actually do that on other maps, which is really, really huge. And I think what Frito was sort of brought up is like that is a big deal when the map allows your tank to be a little bit more passive and still gain value, where Olay's allowed to put that damage down range. You're gonna win out over looking for Auric, who just they couldn't get that same level of consistency from their Zen player. Also, just an aside before but like, Moira into Zen goats, don't do it. Just don't do it.
Oh my gosh, we need like a counter for you every single time you get so angry at Moira. I mean, for me, it's pretty entertaining. I have to
We're
say.
about to start a swear jar, I think, at this
I
point.
know, right? We got to, but I almost put some coins into the swear jar there when we saw LFO run a Symmetra and a Reaper into first point Hanamura, and we have been quite familiar with Symmetra being on these 2 CP points, but why didn't this Reaper pick really work out against those triple tank, triple supports pretty quickly here, Frito?
Oh man, well, we're really going to the time machine here to remember back then. Well, I think to me, what really was the difference maker on that particular fight was that they swapped out their Zarya instead of the Diva, which you think Diva counters everything, and
Yeah.
it's pretty important to keep Diva. I agree. However, when you don't have Zarya, then your main tank is really weak to the enemy Rein Brigida running up on you. And once that character goes down, Reinhardt, well, the whole sim turrets on point gimmick kind of falls flat on its face. So I don't mind teams going for these crazy strategies, pulling out a Torb, Sim, things like that. This is a long, grueling match. So I think trying to catch your opponent out, even if it doesn't work, upsets the balance and the tempo of how they're coordinating and forces them to think critically, expending brain energy, if nothing else, in order to try to keep them on their back foot. So crazy series. We told you it was going to be a close one. I'm happy that LFT was able to take it in the end because of some of their individual players really popping off. But I think looking into the future, if they are going to indeed be a playoff team, I really hope that they start getting that opportunistic engage calling in order to win on some of these maps where you got to go aggressive with some of these 3-3 comps, especially on Assault.
Yes, and definitely having some creativity will add to the mix. I mean, I think Lafon, do I have permission now to run Symmetra and Torb in our next competitive games?
You can do it. I won't be there, but
Well,
if
there
you
you go, everybody. Let's just ignore whatever he was going to say. Take a quick break, and I'm going to start planning how Lafon and I will together get up in the ranks with my amazing Symmetra. So we'll be right back.